Good afternoon. My name is Emily Reynolds. I have the great fortune to serve as vice chairman of this incredible group of people. And we are, of course, here today for our quarterly meeting of the Tennessee Board of Regents. I know the topic on everyone's mind today is the weather. And in my old age, I have become an addict of the Weather Channel. So I'm so glad Genesco has those big screens out here. We are all very mindful of the weather today. I know folks, in many cases, have long journeys ahead of you. So while we certainly want to be thoughtful about the work before us today, I do want us to be as timely as possible and hopefully get out of here just a little bit earlier than we might have originally anticipated. So we will keep careful watch on the time, although we do have very important business to accomplish today. It has been a busy school year, a busy academic year so far, with lots of exciting things going on across our system. We're in the middle now of holding our legislative events across our campuses. We have commencements upcoming as we approach the end of this first semester, so a very exciting time on our campuses. I also want to take one moment to mention in this season of giving something very special that our staff here at the Tennessee Board of Regents did just a few weeks ago. Regent Thomas and I had an opportunity to judge the chili cook-off to raise money for breast cancer efforts. And our staff here also had a significant team put together in the race and walk that occurred that weekend down at LP Field. So to our team here, really a remarkable effort. They raised several $1,000s on behalf of breast cancer efforts in Tennessee. Bobby and I had a great time.
I had a great time.
Okay. So, exactly.
Take the pull.
And Bobby relented and gave me my own bowl of Fritos. So we had a great time for a good cause. And again, to the TBR staff, our hat is off to you for caring so for others and being part of such an important effort. With that, I will stop and ask our Chancellor if you have any opening remarks today.
No, other than just welcome everybody here. And as the chair indicated, we'll try to move this along as best we can.
Thank you. We also have a number of dignitaries with us today, and certainly one we're proud to recognize here shortly, and that is Senator Douglas Henry. Thank you for joining us today. And you know, in this day and time, when we all rely on television as such a reliable source of news, that there are a few things more intimate than those faces that are in our living rooms and our dens with us every day, bringing us the news of the day. And with that, Channel 4's Demetria Kaladimos has joined us today as well. So, not simply a great news anchor, but again, an outstanding citizen in our community. And we look forward to hearing from you as well. Mary Moody, welcome back. And would you call the roll, my friend? Thank you.
Governor Haslam. Regent Copeland. Here. Regent Duckett.
Here.
Regent Ferris.
Here.
Regent Freeman.
Here.
Regent Griscom.
Here.
Regent Huffman. Regent Humphrey.
Here.
Regent Johnson. Regent Kisber.
Here.
Regent Markham.
Here.
Regent Reynolds.
Here.
Regent Rhoda. Regent Roddy.
Here.
Regent Smith.
Here.
Regent Thomas.
Here.
Regent Varlin.
Here.
Regent Wallace.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam
Thank you very
Chairman.
much. Thank you, Mary. At this time, we will look for approval of our minutes from our September 20 regular quarterly board meeting. The members of the board received these prior to the meeting. Are there any corrections or changes to make at this juncture? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Regent Duckett. Any discussion? With that, we simply need a voice vote on the approval of the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved. Chancellor, we have an interim action report that will also call for an action on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have before you, and I think it was sent out to you as part of your materials, the report on interim action, which provides a listing of business transactions that have taken place through my office since the last quarterly meeting in September. If you had a chance to review that and have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The transactions are routine in nature, the same kind of thing that you see every quarter, and I would recommend, pending questions, approval by the board of the report of interim action.
Move approval.
Second. Thank you, Regent Markham. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, this also requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The interim report is approved. In our third series of actions before us, we have two committee reports, the approval of our minutes from the November 19 Audit Committee, the approval of the minutes from a specially called meeting of Academic Policies and Programs Committee that was also held November 19 and were also in your packets. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Thank you, Regent Griscom. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Regent Roddy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion as well also carries. This is always one of our favorite times on the program when we get to recognize folks who have deservedly earned the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy, and Regent Duckett will present that for us today.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds. It's my pleasure to present the Regents Award for Philanthropy. Today, the Tennessee Board of Regents is proud to recognize the recipients of the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy, Mr. Charles and Judy Burkett, who were nominated by President Shirley Raines of the University of Memphis. Charles is a 1973 alum of the University of Memphis, and his wife Judy, they epitomize the spirit of the Regents Award as donors, volunteers in fundraising, and advocates for the University of Memphis within the community. For nearly a decade, Charles, who is a retired president of banking for First Horizon National Corporation, has been a leader at the university. He served 2 terms as a member of the University of Memphis's Board of Visitors before becoming chair of the Board of Visitors in 2009. Along with being chairman, he simultaneously served as president of the University of Memphis Foundation. The 100 million plus Foundation accepts and administers support for the university. In addition to their already commendable commitments to the university, Charles and his wife, Judy, rose to the challenge of co-chairing the university's Empowering the Dream Centennial campaign. With the goal to raise $250 million, the Centennial campaign is the most ambitious campaign in the university's history. The Burkett's enthusiasm is underscored by their personal campaign commitment of a significant gift designated for the support of first-generation college students, which Charles himself once was. They are members of both the University Brister Society, which recognizes generous donors whose cumulative giving exceeds $100,000, and the Columns Society, through which the university acknowledges individuals who include the university in their planned and estate giving. With their generosity sets an elite example for fellow alumni and friends. The Burketts also share their convictions about the importance of the University of Memphis and the benefit of the campaign in a variety of other ways. They are active spokespeople in the media and at countless university campaigns and community events. They frequently call on prospective donors to ask for their support of the campaign. They work closely with university personnel to develop campaign plans and preside over meetings with volunteer leadership committees of the Centennial Campaign. These leadership committees are comprised of more than 120 individuals and couples who endorse the importance of the University of Memphis to the city, the state, and the region. In addition to their significant involvement in support of the University of Memphis, Charles and Judy are also known in the Memphis community for their philanthropic support and volunteer involvement. Charles headed up a citywide United Way drive which broke all previous records. He serves on numerous civic boards, including the Mid-South Minority Business Council and the American Heart Association. I am pleased to acknowledge the recipients of the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy, Charles and Judy Burkett. The University of Memphis is grateful to Charles and Judy for their commitment as they have helped guide the university toward the success of the $250 million capital campaign by sharing their time and resources in representing the university and the community. Charles and Judy Burkett are going above and beyond to ensure a successful future for the University of Memphis. Vice Chair Reynolds, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Duckett, and thank you for highlighting this remarkable couple and their commitment to their community and to the University of Memphis. You know, our schools operate obviously on tuition, obviously on the help of great folks like the Burketts, and obviously with significant help from our state legislators. And it seems appropriate today that we honor one of those very special individuals. And with that, I would like to begin some comments, and I would ask my fellow regents to join in as well, as we honor Douglas Henry, currently the state senator for the 21st Senatorial District of Tennessee. Of course, his district is comprised of a good portion of Nashville and Davidson County. And Senator Henry, as I was looking over his credentials earlier, all of which we all know so well given his distinguished years of service, but it struck me that you are truly one of the members of the greatest generation. You're a family man. 6 children, 13 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. You're an accomplished attorney with your degrees from Vanderbilt University and a member of the local bar and the ABA. You served your country in World War II, and as I recollect, you're a life member of both the American Legion and the VFW. And of course, you've served so well first in the State House of Representatives back in the 50s for a term, and then of course your service in the State Senate since about 1971. You know, in this day and time when we're so disillusioned about public service, about government, you're a gentleman who personifies public service and trust, and you set an example for all of us to emulate. Your service on the Senate Finance, Ways and Means Committee as chairman will certainly set records, and you're now chairman emeritus of that committee. And I had to smile when I saw you turn up even at our budget committee hearing the other day with the governor. There you were, as interested in higher education and public higher education as ever. As most of us know, this is Senator Henry's last term. When he leaves next year, he will have served the great state of Tennessee with distinction for 44 years. We know that over the course of the next year, you will receive many, many accolades, and we are especially honored that you give us the opportunity today to honor you in such a special way. And with that, I would like to ask any of my fellow board members, because I know so many of you have worked so closely with Senator Henry through the years, for any comments you would like to make. Thank you, Regent Ferris.
You know, I just would like to say to Senator Henry how much I have appreciated him over the years, working with him in the General Assembly and the work that I've done there, and probably one of the greatest things you can say about somebody is that he was always good to his word. Anytime he told you, is all you want to know is, you know, are you going to be with me or are you going to be against me? And you just want an answer. And whatever he told you, you could count on it. So just appreciate all your work, Senator Henry.
Regent Copeland and then Regent Thomas.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that.
Thank you, Regent Ferris.
I don't know Senator Henry very well, but I'd like to share this story. Back in late 80s, early 90s, I had reasons to be on the Hill on legislations that affected my profession and also as a city council member. And as I got to know some of those individuals on the inside that knew what was going on, that was shared with me, Steve, you can't believe half of anything these legislators tell you. But he went on to, this happened twice on 2 different occasions, but he went on to say there are a few exceptions, and one of those is Doug Henry. that he's a man who serves with principle and integrity and honesty. And we need more of you in our legislative bodies, and thank you for all the service to our state.
Well said. Regent Thomas?
Yes, Senator Henry, you gave me the privilege for the last 20 years anyway of raising your money when you had to run for election. And it was a privilege. But I will say that it was the easiest money I ever had to raise for any political candidate. It wasn't hard work, and I enjoyed every second of it, and I want to be there for you in the years to come.
Very nice. Regent Griscom?
So let me add to this, because I had a chance to sort of reintroduce myself to Senator Henry just a little while ago. I was, at that point, a young reporter who came up to cover the Tennessee General Assembly from the Chattanooga Free Press. And there were a few people that I was told that you really needed to follow if you wanted to know what was going on. And once you got past the delegation that's in my hometown, Chattanooga, Hamilton County, that one of those people was Senator Douglas Henry. And I share that because as a reporter, I never found anyone better to work with who would share to what you said, John. He would tell you what was on his mind. He would give you good advice. If he didn't have something to tell you, he would say that as well. So as a journalist at that point, I want to thank you and hope that I learned enough that as I grew up over the years, that I was able to keep those things you taught me. So thank you.
Very eloquent comments and well-deserved. And now, Chancellor Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would simply echo all that has been said. You know, in current events today, particularly the issues with the state of Illinois, their pension plan, and serious fiscal crisis that they're in, as well as several other states. City of Detroit, who has declared largest municipal bankruptcy in the history of the United States. The fiscal problems that those states, that those cities have never been a problem in the state of Tennessee. Tennessee has historically been a low tax, low debt, well-managed state. We simply don't have the problems in state and local government finance that other states have. And very much the reason for that is sitting behind me, Senator Doug Henry, along with his colleagues, John Bragg and Leonard Donovan and others, really took seriously and worked hard at creating a policy framework within the state of Tennessee that really did and has resulted in Tennessee being one of the best managed states, if not the best managed state in the country. And in my service to the legislature, to the state in various roles, including this one, I will have to say that there was never any time that we needed help in trying to pursue what we believe to be good public policy and good financial management policy, that Doug Henry wasn't at the front of the process, willing to do everything he could do to ensure that Tennessee was a well-managed state. So, with what has been said, with much appreciation, we very much would like to recognize Senator Henry for his service to public higher education, but moreover his service to the citizens of the state of Tennessee. And Senator, if you would. On behalf of the board, I would like to present you with this memento and thank you so much for all you have done and all you will do for the state of Tennessee.
Oh, Chancellor. Well, my goodness, Chancellor, Madam Vice Chair Lady, members, what a wonderful tribute. A classic award. Classic in design, classic in meaning. I've enjoyed working with you, of course. Could have done more for you. Did something for you, maybe. I don't know. I'm glad to see Mr. Lenz and Dr. Van Allen here today. There's the Board of Regents. There they are. Where Dr. Van Allen, well, maybe he had to go. That's late. He was here, so I'm talking. And I appreciate them very much. Of course, Dr. Van Allen's a doctor. You see, you all changed our school over there to community college. When I started working with it was Mr. Ed Weld. He's very proud of being Mr. He didn't want to be a doctor. He was the first president over there. And I can't come here and be with you all and what you do without thinking about Commissioner Howard Wolf. Any of you ever hear of him? Now, there was a man who really believed in education for everybody, everywhere in the state, and he made his business to influence the governors he worked with in that direction. Well, you all have got a long way to go. I was going to say 2 or 3 things, but that's enough out of me. You talk about my being working with the state so long. That was pretty easy. I went in the Army, did my federal service, said, well, I got that behind me, now I want to be a state man. I like that being better than being a federal man. I've been a state man ever since. That's what I am, what I've tried to be. Well, ladies and gentlemen, your Chancellor, Morgan, certainly motivated me, 3 or 4 years ago now, I suppose, on the importance of what you do for the state of Tennessee. He'd carried a bunch of us up to Upper East Tennessee, up Washington County somewhere. Is that right, Mr. Morgan? Up to Washington County and put us down in a room where we couldn't get away. And he brought charts with him. And he showed how the low number of college graduates we have in Tennessee is hurting us. Hurting us. It hurt us in the past, hurting us now, will hurt us in the future. And your job with your schools scattered throughout our state is to bring about a correction to that condition. And I know you will. And I appreciate your efforts in that direction. You know, Tennessee is a wonderful state. Tennessee is my home country. But we got the best people in the world, but we need to equip them to be the best they can be. And if they don't have an education, they can't do that. And you all are going to give them that education. And I appreciate that very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
He is a Southern gentleman, and all. Probably 82, I want to say, something like that.
While your chancellor's here, the way I got ready to introduce the Board of Regents, when I got to the Senate, never guess who was sitting down next to me and did for 8 years. Dr. Albert Hubble. He just retired as president. Austin P, where Mr. Morgan went to school. And Dr. Hubble taught me a lot. I kind of felt like I had Austin P education myself.
Thank you all. That was very special. And I think he made it clear he expects some work out of us yet to come. So as we work to equip our students to be the very best they can be, as Senator Henry put it. With that, Chancellor Morgan, I will call on you for your report, and I think we have perhaps an update from our Vice Chancellor, Tristan Denley.
We do, and that will be my report in furtherance of our effort to try to conclude our business as timely as possible. But some of you had the opportunity at the Academic Affairs Committee meeting to hear some of this presentation, but I felt like it was important enough that I wanted the full board, as well as those who are with us, to see the direction that we're moving, and ask Tristan to present that to us in a fairly brief but appropriately thorough fashion. So go ahead.
Yeah. So well, I better talk quickly. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to give this completion initiative update, and really the focus of today is to try to paint, at least briefly, the ways in which we envisage using data in some pretty profound ways to personalize and individualize the education for our students, so that we can really make them as successful as they ever can be. Really trying to rise to this challenge that's been put out for us today. So I'm going to try to hit on 6 sort of overarching ideas that really illustrate that, and briefly touch on some things that are already in place that are furthering those. There are others, and I'll be happy to talk about those and answer questions or afterwards too. So the basic ideas behind this are initially to recognize the fact that there's a lot of research now that shows that making choices is really hard. I think we all know this in our personal lives, that when there are lots of choices to be made, we find it difficult to find the right choice for us. When things are more limited, more focused, that's not such a big deal. Choosing from half a dozen things is something that we can manage. Choosing from 100 different things, that's something which, as humans, we just find very challenging. And our students are no different. Our students, when they first arrive at institutions, have to choose often from hundreds of different programs, hundreds of different possibilities that they have to juggle. Sometimes they're not aware of even all the possibilities that they have to be able to choose from. And so part of what we want to do is to recognize those difficulties and empower the choices that they make. And part of empowering that choice is framing the choice in ways which we know would lead to them making more advantageous choices. This is one of the ways that we now know is a tactic for us to be able to close the kinds of achievement gaps that we see for students of color, for low-income students, for first-generation students. So one of the ways in which we're going to do that is to help students choose their major. What we know is that lots of students, when they arrive at institutions, universities, community college, many of them know precisely what they want to do. Many of them have no idea what they want to do. But what we do know is that no choice is a really bad choice. Entering institutions undecided, all of the kinds of success measures that we know about those students are all inferior to when students know what it is that they want to do. The trouble is that the way the system is set up, either you know precisely what you want to do, or you just have to be undecided. So students, when they arrive, maybe they say, I want to major in math, go ahead. If they say, well, I either want to major in physics or chemistry, then we say, oh, so you're undecided, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. So part of this idea then is to rephrase this idea of choice, to recognize the fact that you may not know precisely what you want to do as you carry out your studies, but you can distinguish the beach from the mountains. And so this idea of creating macro majors to recognize that students may not be able to narrow down to a singular thing, and maybe it's unwise for them to do so, but they know, broadly speaking, whether they're more interested in business or arts or humanities or education. So go in that general direction, and as you follow that pathway, so you will be more able to distinguish more clearly exactly where it is you want to go. What we suspect is that if students do this, they will change their major much less frequently. They will end up taking hours which count towards that direction, not change directions and lose hours that would otherwise be helpful. Once they're on those pathways, what we want to do is to make sure that the pathways are really clear. For many of our students, first-generation students, when they first walk in the door and go to an institution, they don't know how higher education works. And so they often get sort of lost in the shuffle, the maze of higher education policy and procedure. So we want to, through a number of initiatives, to make those pathways much, much clearer so that it's much more easily followed towards graduation. So one of the ways to do that is simply to let them know exactly where it is that they need to go, to set out some default pathways. If a student is in a particular program, to set out a default pathway that they can follow, which leads to their successfully graduating, not for them to sort of stumble about and try to discover that pathway for themselves. It's clear that there are most advantageous pathways to graduation in each of our disciplines. We can lay those things out so they can know precisely which way to go. Along those same kinds of ideas, if we lay out those pathways, there are roads that are much more heavily traveled than others. And so a quick analysis of the over 8,000 courses that we offer system-wide every year shows that although there are 8,000 different courses that we offer, and we need that kind of diversity of courses to be able to satisfy all of the different programmatic requirements, only 30 of those courses, the enrollment in only 30 of those courses comprises more than half of our system-wide enrollment. So about 1 million enrollment altogether, 500,000 of them are in those 30 courses. So it's very surprising. So what we want to do is to look at those 30 courses and make those 30 courses be as effective as they possibly can be for our students. Well, now you know there are 30, you can probably imagine what they are. They're all those courses that are right at the beginning of study. They're foundational curricular courses, so they play a double role. On the one hand, everybody's going to take them. On the other hand, they build that foundation which needs to be solid. If you look at the chart that I've shown you, the red ones are ones that system-wide have a DFW rate that's below 40%. So all of the other courses, only fewer than 2/3 of the students are actually passing those courses system-wide. So this is immediately a place where by impacting the way in which we teach those classes, we can immediately touch almost all of the students in the system. So there is right now a call for proposals that's gone out for teams of faculty system-wide to re-envisage the way in which we teach these classes. I'm happy to tell you that I received more than 130 applications for ways to re-envisage those classes, so more than 350 faculty who are involved in that work right now. And then those proposals will be coming in later this month, and people will be hard at work at this in the coming years. So there's a lot of excitement around doing this work. All right, now we have this idea of once students have a path, have chosen a path, now we are able to make sure that students are actually following the pathways that are in front of them. This is a place where we really can bring technology to bear and combine it with human interaction. Because as we follow those students as they go along those pathways, making sure that there's passing the classes that are the biggest indicators for successfully completing the program, making sure that they're in the right classes and in the right classes at the right kinds of times, those are really imperative to making sure that students are able to graduate in a timely fashion. And so there are a number of technologies that are emerging right now. The best analogy that I can think of is 15 years ago, we may have been discussing taking classes online, and there would be this new thing, this new technology called a learning management system. Now these things are ubiquitous. We're at the same kind of place where now these what are called IPAS systems, integrated planning and advising systems, that empower faculty advisors, empower faculty and staff on campus to intervene when students go astray in their studies. These are the kinds of things which I think 10 years from now, we'll be looking back and saying this is the way in which we really were able to intervene and help students succeed. So some of this work is already happening across a number of campuses using technologies in this way to intervene with students, and I know that this will flourish across the system in the coming years. Along the same kinds of lines, if it's imperative that students take the right classes at the right times, then it's incumbent on us to make sure that they're actually scheduled, that the classes the students need are actually offered, and they're actually offered at times when they're able to take them. I think we're all aware of the fact that many of our students have significant obligations outside the classroom. Gone are the days when students, in our system anyway, were largely traditional students who were just on campus and could take classes whenever we offered them. That's not the picture. And so recognizing those bottlenecks, recognizing those practical limitations, recognizing ways which, as a system, we're able to coordinate to make sure that students don't get stuck in the programs because there's a course that they need, but it just simply isn't offered on their campus when they're able to take it this semester instead of next semester. Recognizing those and being able to envisage and prepare for future capacity. This is a place where detailed predictive analytics and data mining really comes to bear and really has an effect of being able to help, if you like, really prepare the pathway for students to move their way through their degrees. Getting on the pathways early. If we have these pathways, really opening the doors and the eyes of students who often right now do not think the higher education is for them by giving them a taste of college level work when they're in their high schools. So you think about initiatives like dual enrollment or dual credit. Dual enrollment right now, for so many students, it's really focused towards the upper band of students. It's students who are at the top of the achievement range. What we believe is that by taking that experience further down into that middle band, we give those students a taste of the fact that, yeah, college is absolutely something that you can do. You already have demonstrated that you have the ability to do that, and we expect that those students in greater proportions will then carry on into higher education. But it's also the case that there are a number of ways in which we might give students that taste of post K-12 experience so that they will carry on with their studies. In just the same kind of way, about 2/3 of our students right now, when they arrive at our institutions, they arrive with a preparation that puts them into some kind of remediation. For many of those students, what that means is they arrive and we tell them, yeah, I know you thought you were ready for college level work, but actually you're not. And just even the psychological effect of that message is pretty stunning. What we do know is the way in which we work with that remediation, the way in which we create that experience is extremely influential to the likelihood of those students succeeding. And much work has been done here in our system over the last 5 or 6 years to re-envisage the way in which we deliver that learning support, that remediation, that making sure that those students who are less able in disciplines like math, reading, and writing can really get the preparation they need. We intend to carry on with that work and instead build on it in a way where those students, as much as is possible, can be enrolled in credit-bearing classes in those disciplines from the beginning of their studies, but surround that with a system of supplementary instruction and that learning support so that while they're taking that credit-bearing class, they can have the support that they need to be able to be successful in those classes. We believe that this will be a much more successful model than a first this, then that kind of approach. So the last piece is this idea of community and belonging. I think it's easy to know that what happens in the classroom is a really powerful experience. And it's in the end what happens in the classroom that decides the grades that students will get. But what happens outside the classroom and between the classroom and the friendships that students make and the communities that they grow as they go through those studies it is now very clear, an amazingly influential experience to students succeeding. And so finding ways in which we can use these new non-cognitive kind of facets to be able to help students be more successful is the last of these pieces, to recognize that, if you like, as these students, they pick a path, they're now all moving along a path. The picture I always have in my head is running a marathon, running a long race. It isn't that the people who are running along and doing that know each other at the beginning of the race. But by the end of the race, they've gotten to know the people who are around them, and there's a support system to that. So finding ways in which we can recognize how to structure cohort learning communities, block schedules, all kinds of ways in which we can create community within community and help students who perhaps question whether they really belong in higher ed to know that they really do. These are now far from tangential kinds of ideas. So altogether, this is the list of the completion priority strategies that I think have been shown to you before. And then these 6 that I've talked about today, you can see that they really they very much overlap with the ideas that are embodied in the original priority strategies. But there are some, if you look at the ones that are highlighted, they currently are the academic affairs ones. There's a sense in which that learning support and the structured learning communities, they are encompassed in this sort of broader vision. And so our intention is to reorder things and structure things a little so that now this architected choice, articulated paths, and community belonging and inclusion will be part of this overall picture of priority strategies. The others that are on the right clearly are an important integral part of the overall approach, but I hope you get the idea of this overall picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tristan. Any questions about that? Yeah.
Sir.
I have just one question. We've had our P16 initiative going quite a while. My question would be, as the board has made some major changes in terms of our colleges of applied technology and our community college, are guidance counselors within our public schools prepared to do some sort of assessment on kids either in middle school or high school that to determine their aptitude and help guide them in the correct direction? You mentioned that maybe a third of the students know what they want to major in, a third not sure, and et cetera.
That's about right.
And seems like the guidance counselors, just when you go to your physician, does some sort of a medical assessment, a medical history to determine a course of action. I wonder in our institutions the effectiveness of guidance counselors in assessing kids' career choice, and then if it's needing developmental help in a certain area, or that it'll result in a job, that they're aware of that, so they can earn a sustainable wage. Could you address some of that?
Yes, I
how
can.
effective they are in
So I think
sure when they choose one that they can function and be successful.
I think you've hit on exactly the place where this choice really impinges. So it's an easy observation that you can't choose something that you don't even know is a choice. And for many students, certainly when I was a high school student, I don't know that I even had any idea what all the possible choices were. And I certainly didn't have any idea about what all the possible choices were and what kinds of careers they might lead to and what kinds of salaries those things might be and what kind of job availability there might be in all of those kinds of things. And if any of them were a decent fit for me. And so I think you're exactly right. Creating an environment, a technology, an interface where, first of all, students themselves, with their parents or with their spouses, to be able to explore that and understand what the options are and what are the costs in time, what are the costs in resources, what's the cost in where these things are available. These kinds of interfaces, the picture I have in my head is something like Zillow. I don't know if you bought a house recently, but to imagine, to understand what the options are and to be able to explore them in a meaningful way, this is a really powerful kind of picture. And then to realize that just doesn't happen in a vacuum, but having that to empower a human conversation is a really powerful piece of this, I think.
So have we included that in our strategy?
Yes, sir. That's very much part of that architected choice idea.
Thank you.
Yes.
Regent Freeman.
Dr. Tristan, I am excited about this program that you have established, and it treats our students like customers, that we care about them, we want them to stay and come back and be successful. But having said that, when you implement this program, what is it going to do to our graduation rates? Do you have an idea we're going to go from X to X plus? So I want to set some expectations.
I believe they will go up, yes.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful, but what can I expect if I were the CEO of a company and you came to me and said, I want to invest in this? I want to know what's going to be our return on this.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So what I will say is I absolutely expect all of our success parameters to increase. I think you know well that I've only been in this role just for a short time, and so analyzing the data to be able to give some kind of definitive number about what kinds of numbers we might be looking at, it's too premature. But it shouldn't be very long until I can give you some decent idea.
You'll come back to us and say, we're going to take graduation rates from 50% to 95%, and then we can measure you upon that.
I will come back and say something. I'm not going to come back and say that, is my suspicion.
That's what I was hoping you'd say.
And Regent Freeman, that segues very, very well into kind of the rest of this story. And the rest of the story is, it is time for us as a system to undertake a renewed strategic planning activity. You know, we have a plan that was in place. It's a 2010 to 2015 plan. For us to be in a position to move forward, it's now time to start that process. And our vision is, as staff, as we have talked about this, is that very much our strategic plan is not going to be like it has been in prior periods. You and I neither were here at the last time a strategic plan was adopted, but there was a lot of effort put into gathering large groups of folks together to talk through kind of what our mission is, what our vision is, what is it that we aspire to be as a system. And I would argue that has been established for us. I think the Governor's Drive to 55 initiative that builds on the Complete College Tennessee Act and the things that were done in 2010 establish in a very clear way what our mission is, and that is to produce larger numbers of post-secondary credentials that will meet the needs of the state's economy and the state's citizens going forward. So what we will be doing with your consent is moving forward on that next strategic planning cycle really built around these elements, these strategies. We are working with THEC, with the Governor's Office to establish hard targets for our institution, for our system, and for our institutions as to really what we have to do if the state is going to achieve its overarching goal of 55% of the workforce having a post-secondary credential. We have targets like that in place now, and I'm happy to report that every one of our institutions is on track to meet the goals that we had previously established, but those goals are moving. And the Drive to 55 really is an acceleration and a pushing forward or bringing forward a more aggressive agenda for us. So we will have very specific targets by institution that we'll be able to measure in more or less real time as to the progress that we're making using the strategies that we believe will lead to the improvements that we're all seeking.
So what does it cost to implement this across the system?
I think that actually, I think
it's what you do.
Yeah, it's what we do. Yeah.
I mean, it's not as long as the outcome-based formula, which helps us focus on specifically what those outcomes are, is funded. Then I think we believe that if the governor or legislature will fund the outcome-based formula, then we'll move forward on this agenda.
This is awesome. Can't wait for you to come back with those numbers.
Me too.
Chancellor, anything else?
Thank you very much, Tristan. That really concludes my report. Once again, I've been successful in my report being delivered by somebody else.
Keep up the good work,
That's right. It's worked for 3 years.
And once again, I think we've all seen that tremendous reminder of the value that our new Vice Chancellor, Tristan Denley, brings to the team. So once again, Tristan, we're just thrilled to have you with us. You continue to make great contributions, and we're very proud of you. This is then a perfect segue to the reports from our presidents and the directors of our TCATs, and you have in front of you the newsletters that they provide to us each quarter, which are so helpful. But once again, this time we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive and learn a little bit more about some of the exciting things going on our campuses, all of which are designed around student success, the Drive to 55, and once again, as Senator Henry said, equipping our students to be the best they can. So with that, Jeff Sisk has joined us, I think. No.
Where is Jeff?
Oh, Brad, I'm sorry. I was thinking Dr. Olden would come up first. I'm sorry, I got confused. All right, I beg your pardon. Thank you. Our provost from MTSU, I beg your pardon. Dr. Bartell is going to talk about another document we have in front of us, the Quest for Student Success, which is what it's all about. Welcome, Dr. Bartell, and thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the board for this opportunity. President McPhee would have been here to do this, but he's in China today with our Confucius Institute program, so I'm subbing for him for today. And it's wonderful that I'm here to do this right after Tristan's report, because what I'm going to report to you today about is a complementary fit to what Tristan just talked about. And it's a good thing for you to hear, because really what I am going to be talking about is the implementation of the ideas that you've already heard from Tristan that we started about a year ago. So some of the questions you posed to Tristan about results, I can start to give you some of those answers. So that's what my report will be about. This is about a hard copy version you have in front of you called the Quest for Student Success. It has the actual report in it, along with some of the really positive national publicity that MTSU has received because of this new action plan. So let us begin. And of course, I've already screwed this up. Here we go. And I'm going to go rather quickly through this because, again, a lot of it is duplicative of what Tristan said, but I do want to make certain points about this. We've been at this for about 2 years now, and as Chancellor Morgan said, a lot of what we have done at MTSU is an outgrowth of the 2010 Complete College Act, along with the issues that all of our institutions have faced over the last few years. That because of the decline of the demographic in the high schools, it's been very difficult to attract burgeoning numbers of high school students to community colleges and the four-year institutions over the last few years. So we had to dive into a new enrollment management plan at MTSU, like most of the other institutions, in combination with Governor Haslam's Drive to 55. So when you put that all together, I think it really promotes for all of our institutions the need to rethink what we're doing. And MTSU was growing so rapidly. Every year, we didn't even have to think about these things, and then we had to really start thinking about it because of a 2-year enrollment decline. So it really was advantageous that all these stars were aligned to allow us to rethink our total approach to student learning. And you'll see that the philosophy of this document is all about a new partnership between the university and the students. And this gets into the whole issue of aggressive, intrusive advising, a new approach to the degree programs, what Tristan was talking about in terms of undeclared students, and making sure that everybody's on the correct pathway. And that's really what we want to do. So we started this 2 years ago and last year in a more intensive fashion. The goals are just threefold. We want to recruit students who really value success. We have a totally new recruitment strategy for Tennessee that I'm not going to be sharing with you today because we just don't have the time. But I want to focus in on the last two bullets, namely that we want to make sure that the academic experience is exactly what the students need to be successful, and to create that partnership between students and the institution, and to make decisions not based on anecdote or whimsy or dice rolling, but in terms of really good data that we use to inform ourselves and make very strategic decisions about the student body, where we're going, and what works and what doesn't. And frankly, we've already tried a number of experiments that don't work, and that's perfectly fine, and many that do work. And we have exploited, obviously, those that do work. So you see in the report, there's after these three goals, there's some numerous dozens of objectives and action plans and responsible offices and completion dates for each project. That's all well and good. You see that in every strategic plan you probably have ever seen in your life, so I'm not going to bore you with that either. But needless to say, what's interesting about this is that all the divisions are responsible, not only the academic affairs division, but development, business affairs, student affairs. We're all working in concert to make a difference for our students. And this is frankly the first time I know historically at MTSU where all the divisions are collaborating in a new approach, and no egos are involved, and everything is going rather well. We also have weekly executive team meetings to make course changes. We have monthly advisory team meetings that have a much more collective group of individuals from all the colleges and all the divisions involved. And we have established an Office of Student Success that is under my purview, that is guiding the approach for the entire university. And in terms of specific all-university initiatives that have already been started, Tristan talked about the course redesign that's so fundamental. We've already started this with 7 of 42 general education courses that have a high DFW rate. Every year we're going to do approximately 14 additional course redesign courses. We found that these 42 courses constitute almost probably around 90% of the high DFW issues. We have almost 15,000 students taking these courses each semester. So as Tristan has already told you, if you focus on these limited set of courses that are really where the freshmen and sophomores are having the trouble, you're going to create a whole different retention environment. We have students who are failing 2, 3 of these courses their first semester of their freshman year. They're just going to drop out. They're going to feel as if they are failures. And we need to redesign these courses. We've already done this. We have these courses that we're testing out this semester that were redesigned last semester. I can hopefully, President McPhee or I can come back and give you the results of that. But we're very optimistic that the already redesigned courses are going to make a significant difference. We have a brand new student university tutoring center that is going to be used housed in the library that I'm devoting a lot of resources to make a difference in terms of supplemental instruction for the students and gearing them towards group collaborative tutoring. We have a new grade alert system, total revamping of advising with additional resources devoted to professional advisors. We talked already with Tristan about career pathways, and we're using the professional advisors in concert with the faculty advisors to make a difference there. We have a brand new one-stop shop. The building actually will be finished in May, and that building will house all of the necessary advising and cashier's office and financial aid offices all in one location so that the students can get help. We have also what we call a concierge service there. Regardless of who your advisor is, your designated advisor, all the students know they can go to that building and someone will help them with any problem they have. And that's going to be critical for them. We've streamlined the transfer process. We've expanded dual enrollment. So we've done a lot of university initiatives. Another set of university initiatives are on the screen. I want to concentrate on just 2, which are the 2 bottom ones, the 2 bullets. Tristan talked about this need for intensive career advising for undeclared students. We have over 1,000 undeclared students who come to us as freshmen every year. And as Tristan already said, the best approach is intensive career advising with professional advisors using ACT subset scores for analytics in terms of seeing what their aptitudes are about, and also having these macro approaches to macro disciplines to get their feet wet to find out what interests them. So we have revised our freshman learning communities where we prescribe which courses they will take. As Tristan said, you don't want to give an 18-year-old 1,000 course choices. Not good. Just yesterday I was on Amazon.com. I was confused by 100 choices for my wife's gifts, so we're not going there. So we're going to prescribe which courses these freshmen are going to take, and they're going to take 2 to 3 in common and build up a peer group of people that are supportive of one another and get them involved with these macro pathways of social science or physical science and the like. Likewise, at MTSU, we have certain very popular majors. You know about our recording industry major. You know about our nursing program. They're huge programs. Not everybody can, unfortunately, achieve candidacy. We have so many students who come to become nurses. We can only take 64 students per semester into that program because of accreditation and the size of our faculty. Hundreds fall by the wayside. Therefore, we want to get quick advising to those students and chart them into alternative health fields so that they feel as if those pathways are as good as nursing pathways. The same holds true for recording industry. Not everybody's going to be a great songwriter or an artist in the recording industry. We need to get them into, for example, media business as an alternative career pathway. So we're doing that in a more hand-holding, effective manner. I'd like to bring up to the podium right now Dean Bud Fisher, who is my Dean of the College of Basic and Applied Sciences, and I want to have him talk about an initiative that he's doing with his science students. Bud?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to talk to you today about the Science Freshman Forum. When we took a look at the students who were coming in, and especially in the College of Basic and Applied Sciences, what we were trying to figure out is once you've chosen that as a major, how can we give you the expectations or teach you what you need to know to succeed within these majors, which we know we need more STEM people and graduates in the future. So what we decided to do is not send them to University 1010, which was a basic seminar course for freshmen to get them ready for college and to create the transition. We decided to do it within the college, within each major. We thought if we put them in the major they wanted to be in, we could get some certain positives out of it that would help them succeed in the future. And some of the things that they get out of it is we teach them the intellectual life of the university and teach them about what's the intellectual life within their major. In addition to that, what we do is we teach them what are the major requirements and core requirements so that they're not confused at all and we get them on the right direction to immediately start. In addition to that, we also address academic skill sets. So we talk about different academic skill sets related to time, money management, all those types of things. And lastly, what we talk about is engaging them in social activities. We are about to go and start something called a passport. And the passport will be a way for them, they will get a little book, and over the year they will have to go to different events and get stamped. And in that way become engaged within the community of the university. Now that's what you usually do when you talk about these freshman courses, but we do two other different things that I think makes it different. And the first part of that is we rotate the faculty through to tell their story. All of these students, if you ever get a chance to talk to them, there's some interesting questions to ask them. One is to ask them whether or not they thought you were a great student. And everyone will tell every professor, oh, you must have been great, you just cruised through college. Well, we all know that's a lie. So when we talk about that, what we really want to do in most cases at this is get the faculty to tell them their struggles. How did they get through school? How did they choose the major they did? What were the courses that were difficult? How did they get through those struggles? In addition to that, at that point, it allows us to give them an opportunity to tell them, these are some opportunities we have in undergrad research, internship to be a part with us so that we can engage them early on in their career in activities outside. And lastly, this group of students take things way more seriously than I did. And I'm a first-generation college student who went to a state school, went the first time, never even saw it, showed up that first day. And when I did that, I took my first physiology class, and I remember I got the test back, it was a 32. And I thought, oh my God, I'm done. And that's exactly what they think. The first bad experience they get, the first bad test they get, the first bad somebody saying something to them, they take it personally and they think they can't succeed and they become doubt. And what we're trying to do in this college initiative is take away the doubt. And it's really important because I actually found out very quickly that I was okay because the average on the test was 38. So I said, okay, I'm good. I can stay in here. So what we're doing with these students is in these freshman classes, bringing in juniors and seniors into these classes, having them talk about their experience as freshmen, what kind of doubts went through their minds, how they got past those doubts, but with the trick. The trick is, this is a study that was done by Dr. Walton at Stanford, but he said it only works in one way. And the only way it works is if you tell them, we're doing this and we're having you talk about it because we want you to be peer mentors later. If you tell them it's an intervention to make sure they succeed, they don't listen. But if you tell them they can help students in the future, they listen. And they've been able to show that. So we're going to do it where we tell them, look, we want you to be peer mentors in the future. What we're going to do is bring these people in to have conversations so you're all on the same page and then move them that way. And with that, we hope to be able to move them through the college. Thank you.
Thanks, Bud. And this is a huge new development, and by the way, it's going to be impressive to see what Bud is doing in this brand-new $150 million science building that all of you participated in getting for us, so we thank you, because we were not able to do many things in the sciences because of the antiquated buildings that we had. So it's going to be a whole new ballgame come January of next year. I want to move to this last bullet on this slide because, you know, the problem is getting also these students a hand-on experience very early on. I'm an archaeologist by trade, and in most curricula for archaeology, they reserve all the good stuff for the senior year. That's when you finally get to excavate. That's when you finally get to do the survey stuff. We're trying to move all of these kinds of great experiences for the students into their sophomore year. So they really do get a taste for not only in archaeology excavation, but in doing field work in ecology or whatever earlier on, so they know what they're getting themselves into, because archaeology isn't as romantic as it's portrayed in the movie screen, but it's really great stuff. But you want to get those hands-on experiences early on. So we've formed an initiative to get those majors to have those great field and lab experiences much early on in a student's career. Then we have the technology, the data analytics. And as Tristan said, this is going to be a critical part of what all we do. We already are doing the pathway tracking with software and advising to make sure students stay on their pathway. We have developed mobile applications for dynamic academic maps that a student can see right then and there how they're doing, where they are. We've totally redesigned the university website. New advising software for contact management is going to be implemented this year. We have a retention dashboard that the deans, the department chairs, and the faculty can see on a moment's notice live data about the retention in the major and in the college, so they can make changes as they see fit. And we compare our retention results to our peer groups. So when the question was asked before about, you know, where do you want to be in graduation rates? Where do you want to be with progression? We know where we want to be. We know that we want to increase our retention rate by certainly at least 10%, and because that's where our peer groups are. And we have a new student academic tracking and notification system. So we're working on all those as we see there. Finally, we have determined over the last year of this experiment that the only way it's going to be successful is that faculty and staff at universities or community colleges have to be intrusive. There has to be an active and intrusive involvement with students. You can't let the students just make these decisions willy-nilly. And whatever decisions we make about innovation has to be based upon reliable and valid data, and that everybody has to be part of this crusade. So again, I'm very proud to say that our institution, after a year of this kind of experimentation, we do have all of the divisions of the university on board, and everybody's rolling up their sleeves, and the communication, the rhetoric, everything about what we're doing is in lockstep to improve student learning and student success. With that, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bartell. That's
Any
very
questions?
exciting. Questions or comments for Dr. Bartell? Regent Varlin.
Maybe it's just a comment, but it could be a question. I have college-age children that finally some are managing to get out, but the, you know, something that he just talked about when he said that he made his first grade was a 37 and the average or whatever it was. You know, at what point do teachers decide that maybe something's wrong with the way they're teaching? It maybe is not all the students' fault. There seems to sometimes, I know when I was in college, you know, nobody can pass my test, nobody can do this, and it's like, well, with the Completion Act, we better find a way for somebody to pass a test without lowering the rigor, but with maybe it's how you're presenting the information. And I think it's very important, like you say, if you're going to be, how do you know if you want to be involved in a field if you've got 2 or 3 years, engineering being a good example of misery before you get to the part where it might be sort of fun.
Absolutely.
And I think those combinations of things, everybody has a responsibility in this. And believe me, having 4 college kids, I absolutely understand what their responsibility is. It's to study and do their best. But it's also, you know, when they keep going through and this kid's had this teacher, this kid's, and it's the same song, second verse, nobody can pass my test. That, to me, is not a good teacher. That's an ego problem.
I think you're right on target, and it is a series of questions you've posed, but it's also a great statement. We are not a believer in the boot camp mentality of instruction. There, back in the good old days, that's the way most institutions were. If you were not good enough for the way I teach, you're out of here. And it's all about kind of Darwinian selection. I'm talking about two sides of my mouth right now because I'm an anthropologist who firmly believes in Darwinian selection, but at the same time I'm telling you that doesn't work in a college environment. And so when you have DFW rates in a biology course that go from 6% to 69% in one course, you cannot say it's all because of the students. You cannot say that. And it's because the faculty, in many cases, have been teaching it the same old way, not taking into account new learning modes, the way in which the modern student gravitates to technology and alike. So that's what this course redesign thing is all about, to really make sure that you can redesign your courses in an exciting way, in a way that people actually do business in the real world with group projects, totally flip the courses around, and I just got back from University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which is the leader in the country on course redesign, and I was bowled over by what they're doing there. They've been doing this for 8 years, and their results are through the roof. And their student body is not unlike MTSU's in terms of first-generation students, commuter students, Pell-eligible students. So if it works there, we know it's going to work for us. And we do have good analytics nationally about course redesign making a difference. Now, that means a culture change at any institution. You have faculty who are entrenched. Bud is great at motivating his faculty about what's in the best interest of the students, and that's what it's about. And that's what we're all rolling up our sleeves to do.
I think that's important, and, the whole idea that, how you learn, and the highest being, 96% is when you can teach it type of thing, but then you go into classrooms that they're just droning on and on, and it's just like, why bother?
The weathered yellow pages of the lecture notes, and it just doesn't work anymore.
Go ahead.
Regent Freeman, now, he already said he'd be back to give us the results.
Did he say that?
He did. No.
You want me to be pinned down right now?
That was Tristan.
No, but so did Dr. Bartell.
Yes. Where were you? Well, I want to be at least at 80% retention rates. We're at 70% right now. That's where my peer group is, and I want to be at graduation rates that are close to 60%, not the 52, 53% I'm at. That's the minimum. That's where I want to be.
I was hoping that you set your goals a little bit higher.
Well, I wish I could, but I know the national figures. I mean, even Duke University doesn't have them the way you want them.
MTSU is better than Duke.
Well, I know that, but
I'm an MTSU graduate.
I know you are. I know you are. Sometimes retention rates, to move the needle on retention rates, it's a slow process. You sometimes claim victory on an annual basis if you have a 0.5% increase.
Yeah.
I'm aiming for a heck of a lot more than that. So, you can hold me to my prediction, but we're going to do the best we can.
But I just want you to know that I expect more.
Great. I expect more too.
And the reason why I expect more, because we're talking about kids and their opportunity to live the American dream.
Right.
So we're not just talking about a percentage. So, 60% is great, but let's get 70, 80%. We don't know how many kids we are affecting and the lives that we are affecting when they leave the campus and don't graduate.
I certainly hope we can achieve that. There's no doubt about it. We have other, obstacles to that in terms of, at least certainly at my campus and probably the others, about the financial issues that face our students. So much of their ability to proceed at the colleges at the state has a lot to do with their financial problems. And so we'll leave that for another day.
I'm going to call Dr. McPhee in Chown and tell him he needs to set the bar a little bit higher.
There you go.
There
Good.
you go.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Bartell. We are, as you can hear, there are folks who are on this crusade with you. So to you and Dean Fisher, we thank you very much. Extremely well done. And next, Our Dr. Catanzaro, are you up next, sir? Oh, I am. Thank you. All right, very good.
Well, Vice Chair Reynolds and distinguished regents, colleagues, I hope you wore yourself out there, Regent Freeman. You think? Yeah, you did too? Well, as you know, I represent 13 dynamic, powerful community colleges, some of the very best in the United States of America. And we are all engaged very actively and aggressively with the changes that Tristan laid out for you, and a number of other changes as well, a number of other innovations. You know, as you do know, we are undergoing a number of revolutions in higher education. One of the most significant revolutions, it's a revolution that one would not have foreseen even a decade ago, perhaps even a year or two ago. It's the change from being a supply-driven set of entities or institutions to being customer-centered. And when I say customer-centered, I'm not speaking of the customer as the student so much in this case, but as the institution or organization that is going to receive the graduates of our institutions, universities, and the corporations and businesses of America. So much of what we are doing is making changes to adapt ourselves and target our instruction so that the people that we turn out can hit the road and they can hit it running because they're thoroughly prepared and exactly prepared for the industries and the jobs that they're going to enter. Now, speaking about that, I've asked my colleagues if they have some examples of it, and our president, Janet Smith, Dr. Janet Smith from Columbia State Community College, has just an extraordinary program in media technology. And then there's one from Pellissippi, and I'm going to introduce our Pellissippi leader as well. But first, Dr. Smith, would you?
I guess I better pull this down just a tad. Thank you, Dr. Catanzaro, and thank you, members of the board, for allowing us this opportunity to share one of our unique programs. It's a one-year certificate program. It's Film Crew Technology. It's been in place since June of 2008, so it's still a fairly new program, but it is being recognized across the state for what it does, and you could ask him about his placement rate. And I think you're going to be very surprised in terms of that. But I have with me today Mr. Reed Ridley, who is our program coordinator. And he will come up and introduce the program to you. And we also have with us Dimitri Kaladimas, who he will introduce to you as well, who is on our Program Advisory Board Council. All of our technical programs have industry councils that come and meet with us and talk to us about what the needs are in the community and in their industry, and help us to align our curriculum that way. So she'll speak to you in reference to that. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Ridley.
Howdy, y'all, and sorry, it's the first time I've ever spoken at one of these big fancy events. We have a wonderful time down there in this program. We've only been there since 2008 is when we started. We're halfway through our 6th unit, as we call it. The very first class we called Unit 1. Right now we're halfway through Unit 6's training. But we have a video that'll show you something about the program that will probably do a much better job explaining it than I do.
When changing careers to the entertainment industry, you need an affordable, proven route. The Film Crew program at Columbia State is that.
The members of our advisory board have worked on more than 450 major television and feature film productions combined.
Hands-on training with the relevant knowledge of today's film industry. That will get me a career.
Marker? I go to Columbia State because graduates from their program are successful. Clear?
Since 2009, Columbia State alumni and students have worked on every single major production in the state of Tennessee.
Columbia State is proud to announce the addition of the Arri Alexa camera system into our curriculum and inventory. The Film Crew Technology Program and Columbia State, working together to build the film industry in Tennessee.
The students produced that spot in 48 hours. 8 weeks before that, they had absolutely no training in the industry whatsoever. To speak a little bit more about the importance of our program, I'd like to invite Ms. Demetria Kaladimas up here. She is a brilliant award-winning journalist, and what you may not know is a fantastic and award-winning documentary filmmaker herself with her own company.
Thank you. Thank you, Bear. Everyone has a nickname. That's another really great thing about the program. For those of you who may not recognize me from Nashville, I'm Demetria Kaladimas. I've been here in this community as a news journalist and nightly news anchor for 30 years, 35 years in the industry altogether. But in the last 10 or 15, I've also been growing my own production company called Genuine Human Productions. We do everything from documentary to music videos to commercial spots, awareness campaigns, and now, fingers crossed, a PBS pilot that may soon be seen nationwide. And as a professional in this field, I don't need to tell you how much a higher education can cost a family, and how students often work for years just to whittle down that accumulated debt. There are exceptions, though, fields and courses of study that practically guarantee you a good living quickly. You'd be hard-pressed to find a young program with a better track record for placement and advancement than the Columbia State Film Tech program. We now have a primetime TV series that's not only a hit, it is a screaming billboard. In fact, I can't think of another city right now that has a show named for it. One name only, Nashville. Well, Nashville kept its production here because there was a talent pool to do the work on site and not take it to the West Coast. This program at Columbia State is extraordinary, turning out first-rate, work-ready technicians who will be the red carpet Oscar winners of the future in directing, cinematography, lighting, and sound design. Mark my words, it will happen. Then consider that most of these students earn back the cost of their annual program with the work they get in training on real productions. So by the time they're graduating, not only have they paid for their education, they're ready to walk out and perform on any crew, on any size production. I believe in what Reed Ridley and the crew at Columbia State are doing, so much so that I have signed up for classes next semester to hone some of my own technical skills for movie making because technology changes so quickly. And what we do in television is not necessarily what they're doing out on feature film sets. You've got a true jewel here. You really do. In New York and LA, they've seen it sparkle. They're envious. Let's make sure the work and the workforce has the option to stay here at home and make great films and entertainment that we all can be proud of. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now, you've got another statement you want to make. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
Go to it.
Yeah, we brought both ponies and the dog today. Oh, wait, I just realized that makes me the dog. Dagnabbit. I'm always the dog. In just 5.5 years of operating, we've become one of the top-ranked film crew programs in the nation. Our completion rating is one of the highest in the state. Our retention level is one of the highest in the states. Our placement level is higher than UCLA, NYU, USC. We're one of the highest placement ratings of any film program in the nation, which is not bad for a couple of country people at this little community college. One thing I do enjoy about it is it's like the video said, ever since our very first class, we've had a student or alumni on every single major production in Tennessee. We have the highest percentage of graduates that go into the union and into the workforce. And it's just something that I'm tickled to death about. You know, it's like he mentioned, it's like we're giving them the opportunity of the American dream. And that's what we're doing. I get tickled every year when I get calls from graduates and from parents that call me back shocked and joyous because they're like, I have a career. I'm like, that's the way it's supposed to work. They're like, but it normally doesn't. I'm like, things change. We challenge the group each year where they have to recreate the opening title sequence of a very popular show. They have to do all the work themselves. They can't cut and paste or download anything. And we also force them to play all the roles so they understand what it's like to be in the talent shoes. That's especially funny at years when we view shows that have multiple female characters, but we don't have enough female students. So I'd like to show you an example where we challenged one of the units to recreate the opening of NCIS, which we changed to FCIS for Film Crew Investigative Services. What you're about to see is a side-by-side comparison of the actual one with ours to see how accurate they were. Like I said, we have an awful lot of fun down there. Our enrollment increased approximately 125, 130% from last year to this year. We're going to maintain that level, and right now we're working out logistics to see if we can even increase that level for Unit 7, which will start next August. Normally we get inquiries into the program about March at the latest. We've already got 5 inquiries and already have 7 people that have already applied. And the addition of that Arri Alexa camera makes us the only college in the U.S. with that technology available to undergraduates. NYU has ones for graduate students only. No one else has it. But it's one that currently more than 40 or 50 major TV shows used to produce. The first season of Nashville was shot on it. Our students from Unit 5 that just graduated, 85% were immediately taken into the union and put to work on Nashville while completing the program. And they were also hired as the main crew for a feature film with Billy Ray Cyrus back in May that used 2 of these cameras. And they had to fly in technicians from LA. So we're meeting a big need to bring in more business here. And so we have a lot of fun up there. And while I get the opportunity to say, I just want to thank you all. So I love what I do. It's great seeing these kids get careers that they never thought were possible. We've got kids from Dixon and Bon Aqua, and a year later, they're regaling us with accounts of, oh, we were on this shoot with these people from LA, and it's the dream for them. I couldn't be prouder of them if they were my own. And you all in Columbia State gave me that opportunity. Thanks. Do you all have any questions?
We'll do that at the end.
We all want to come
All right.
We need to do our own video.
Oh, my.
We're proud to have Demetria as a graduate of the Board of Regents schools, so thank you.
That was good stuff, wasn't it?
That was fabulous, thank you.
Now, we also have Terry Brams with us from Pellissippi State Community College, and she represents a great program as well. The gun is really at your head here, Terry. This is good stuff, but you've got to step up to it here. So come on ahead. She is the Executive Director of Economic and Workforce Development at Pellissippi State.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Dr. Wise, our president, let me send his greetings as well as his regrets. He's sorry he couldn't be with you today. I'm also here to talk about creative media services and our programs. As you may or may not know, Knoxville is home of Scripps Network, which is where you'll find HGTV and a lot of the DIY and other cable programs. We have River Media and other companies as well. And our economic group has come together and said that we want to do a regional approach to economic development, and one of the sectors that we have really targeted is creative media services. So Pellissippi is pleased to be providing potential employees to those companies, and I'd like to let our students and our employers tell you about it.
Not a starter school, it was my destination school. I had heard about the program through some friends who had gone there, and I really liked their work, and I thought, that's what I want to do.
My biggest curiosity has always been in media, and so when I finally got a chance to get into the program and I surrounded myself with all of the information that was made available to me via either the teachers or the equipment itself, that gave me the opportunity to really learn my craft and become as efficient at it as I have to be doing it professionally.
Pellissippi State has provided the foundation of photography learning for me, and all my instructors there helped cultivate that to the point where upon my first interview at the News Sentinel, I was offered a job.
The Knoxville region in East Tennessee has a very young, dynamic, and up-and-coming workforce. I think the type of individuals with a creative mind and opportunities are drawn to the Knoxville area because of the opportunities that we offer them. We believe media technologies is a growing cluster in the Knoxville area, and Pellissippi State has certainly been advantageous for that with the Bagwell Center and the interdisciplinary programs that are worked throughout the system here in the Knoxville region.
After I graduated from Pellissippi State in 2009, I did some freelance work for 6 to 8 months and then was hired by Pixel. They liked my work, and I was hired in winter of 2009.
The Pellissippi State graduates that I've encountered come to us with a better understanding of the practical skills, whether it's design or development, and it really allows them to start work quickly, and it allows us to get them up to speed faster and become valuable members of the team quicker.
One of the things that impressed me about the Media Technologies program was the equipment that I had access to pretty much every day of the week if I needed it. We had a full-size studio that came complete with a green screen, 3 studio-sized cameras, a control room, anything that you could possibly imagine, and being able to actually take a camera home really was a major contributor to me being in the position that I'm in now.
They had the top of the line equipment. We were working on iMacs with all of the latest versions of the Adobe Creative Suite, which is programs that I use every day now.
Companies are looking for employees with multiple training in different types of technologies. It could be a photographer with web skills and animation skills, or it could be a graphic designer who has the ability to cleverly write the captions and the inspirational message that we need to help some of these companies grow their businesses. Pellissippi State and its media technologies programs can provide that workforce that's going to help this region continue to grow.
I'm still using things, the basic techniques that I learned at Pellissippi State, from the software that I'm using to the principles of graphic design. And frankly, when we now go to hire a graphic designer, we don't need somebody who is great at philosophizing about design theory. We need somebody who can come in and get the job done and knows everything they need to know to get started. So that, in my mind, is a major differentiator that Pellissippi has compared to a lot of other schools around. And it also gets it done in 2 years. So I didn't graduate with any school debt that I had to pay off afterward. I was ready to go.
I would definitely consider hiring Pellissippi State graduates again as we continue to grow and we continue to add people to the company. I found them to be a very good fit for us and very good employees over the years that we've had them.
As a photographer, I've been published in every major publication for across the world, from the LA Times, the New York Times. Most recently, one of my photographs was featured in Times Square, New York City. And that would have been possible if it were not for my time at Pellissippi State.
Every day that I'm at my job, I'm using things that I learned at Pellissippi, and I'm just so grateful for my experience there.
Our company, Radio Systems Corporation, we are heavily involved in the community, and I can't think of anything else that I would rather be doing with the career that I was afforded to have, with the education that I was afforded to have from Pellissippi State, with my life. There's not a day that I wake up that I'm not excited to go and do what I have a degree in. And how many people can say that they're actually working in the field that they have a degree in?
So as my friend at Columbia State pointed out, equipment can be rather expensive. So we hope that after our next capital campaign, you will no longer be the only one. But as you can see, the connection with the community and our employers is very important to us, and the Creative Media Youth Services is just one of those programs that allows us to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Well done.
Obviously, good things that are happening in your state and in your system with community colleges as well as universities and our TCATs. Any questions?
I think we are blown away.
I got them twice here. Well, let me tell you, we pride ourselves in our community colleges as being very innovative. And we've taken an innovative step at Chattanooga State. We've just hired a Chief Innovations Officer from Barbados, and I'm going to introduce her to you. Lisa Haynes is in her first week of working with us.
Thank you, Dr. Catanzaro. You always managed, as I said to you before, you put the show together so well for us, so that was all well done, very well done. And Mr. Ridley, you are a wonderful reminder of that great quote of Aaron Burr's, who, on visiting Andrew Jackson's home, the Hermitage, he was so taken by the guests and friends of Andrew Jackson's that he said at the time, Tennesseans can go anywhere and do anything. So thank you very much. So, and now we have, the fun's not over yet. Our TCATs are up next. And now I think, hopefully I'm right now, and there is Jeff Sisk from Jackson. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds, members of the board, Chancellor Morgan, presidents, directors, and special guests. On behalf of the students, staff, and faculty members of the TCAT system in Tennessee, I bring you season's greetings. I want to wish you happy holidays, and I hope your new year is a prosperous one. Obviously, I'm not Brad White. Brad is chair of our Director Sub-Council. He's unable to be with us today, and he's asked me to pinch hit for him by presenting the director's report. You all have a copy of the TCAT newsletter. I hope you take the time to read it. It contains various articles from each of our schools that highlight specific programs and people at our institutions. Dr. Catanzaro ended up bringing up Demetria, and I'm going to end up bringing Warren Locks up to the podium in a second. I'll try to do better next time. So Vice Chair Reynolds, with your permission, I'd like to ask Dr. Warren Locks, Director of the TCAT at McMinnville, to come to the podium and give you a presentation that highlights one of the many unique programs that we have in our system, programs and partnerships that we have in our system. Dr. Locks.
Dr. Locks, I'm not sure what you say after that introduction.
I don't either.
But we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Vice Chair Reynolds, members of the board, Chancellor Morgan, presidents, directors, and special guests. Thank you for this opportunity and to talk about a program that has been in existence. It will be 1 year at the close of this month. The program is reflective of, as all of the other unique programs that you've heard, of listening to industry and business needs and how to meet that workforce needs and the interactions and the relationships that you have to get something to respond to them with. And that takes listening, that takes interaction with them. I have heard, and we went into various meetings with the Tennessee Hospitality Association, with different major restaurants, managers, and they were continuing to talk about that they were not having their needs met for employees because they were having to convert a lot of their efforts and money over to turnovers and actual training themselves. And could we respond to that? And we at the TCATS have the philosophy that you say yes and then you figure it out. And so through that, we went and let me just back up. What they were looking for was unique, and they didn't want just the culinary. They said, we have people that can cook or think they can cook and work in that area. But then if there's a downside, we don't have anybody in the hospitality area. Or else they just know hospitality and they don't know any of the cooking. So the uniqueness of this program is as it's stated, is culinary hospitality. And it's a 1-year program, 1,296 hours, and go 216 days, 6 hours a day. And one of the issues on our campus, after listening to that and putting the different players, identifying the players of interest, was where are you going to have that? Through the workforce board and contacts, we went and we made an appointment in Coffee County. And Coffee County has a wonderful conference center. They also have a kitchen. They also have staff. So we began, and here's the picture of it, and we went in and negotiated. Ms. Moody was involved in that. Thank you very much. And so we sat down and identified that it had the appropriate facility with the Vice Chancellor's support, Vice Chancellor King. We put together and enhanced their facility and set up a schedule and turned that into a partnership where we would be training culinary in the kitchen and also on the front and the back part of the house in the hospitality area. And these students would have live work, and then we'll take a look at the curriculum in a moment and those areas that were deemed necessary. Again, as I said, we started this in January 2013. We have 3 different levels of students in there at any one time. Our max is 20. We currently have 15 students enrolled, and we have graduation coming up this this month of the first group through. I want you to just quickly view, and I'm not going to read those to you, the different curriculum components. And this is an interesting curricula in that it's not totally culinary and it's not totally hospitality. It is reflective of what the potential employers wanted in a worker. So we took their information and designed the curriculum and went through that. I just wanted to quickly show you the operation relationships that have evolved out of that. The Manchester, or the Coffee County Conference Center, is an instructional service center now, part of McMinnville. We are working with the high schools that happen to offer culinary arts with advanced placement of their students into the program. And with consultation with TCAT Murfreesboro and Shelbyville, we encompassed a service area of 45-mile radius. And you will hear in a couple moments some of the placements or the internships where they take place. And so we're working within the high schools, and hopefully we'll be in the process of developing an articulation agreement with the community college for a possible AS degree in hospitality management, so that students can go on up, because some of the restaurants are looking for management potential also. These are our list of our current partners. They stand for themselves, strong components. They all came to the table in the design of the curriculum and the determination of what they wanted. And they have stood there, and some of them are employers, and some of them have experienced. And the proof of the pudding always is, okay, you've run them through here, how will they do? And when they get them out on internships, and for the numbers, I would like to say that 80% of the students that had started completed it, and we have 100% placement of those that will be graduating.
That's pretty good.
It is a very cheap, low cost for a 1 year's training with the kind of employment that they get. Approximate total cost $4,800, of which $2,000 is automatically comes out of, or they qualify through the Wilder NAFI. And with that, the other thing that was unique about our partnership in Coffee County is it came with 4 chefs. And today I have a chef who got to participate today in the luncheon, and she got credit for cooking today. So, but did not have it. But we are glad and honored to have Chef Kim Davis, whose specialty is pastries. And she's going to take us through some of the activities and just some comments relevant to the actual operations. Chef.
Thank you, Dr. Laux. I just want to say thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here as a industry professional and also a past Metro Nashville Public Schools high school teacher who taught culinary, and then an adjunct doing dual enrollment with Nashville State and at the Art Institute. It's very interesting what you guys have to say. As Dr. Locke said, I did not cook the lunch you guys ate today, but we would love to have you guys have a meeting at the conference center. It's a little bit further out in Coffee County, Manchester, but we have the facilities and we'd love to have you. Dr. Locke was saying we have a 100% placement rate. Probably half of those came from when the students did their internships. Most of them were in Tullahoma at Filiago's and Celtic Cup. Filiago's is a restaurant that everything is made from scratch, including their sandwiches that they create on their own, their bread, everything they bring in, they try to buy as local as they can. The Celtic Cup is more of a bakery. It's a coffee house where we have some students that are more interested in pastries, and pastries at our facility are not necessarily a specialty. We do our own, but most people are there to eat their buffets of a variety of meals. Then we had 2 students that went to Five Senses in Murfreesboro, which is more of an upscale fine dining restaurant. Both of those students were hired on immediately after their internship and did very well there. They worked with a student that came from Coffee County High School that went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York also, and she's doing her internship there as well. So it was a good meeting around of everybody. We work with the American Culinary Federation, which is a member of National Chefs. It's a national organization as well as local. I'm actually the treasurer for that chapter, or for our chapter, and our general manager, Michael Osborne, who was going to be here today but had to attend a funeral. He is our past president. He is has been a member for 15 years plus, but he is a well-known and highly regarded chef in the Nashville area. We also work with Skills USA. We hope to have our first post-secondary culinary team in the spring of 2014. We just started last year in January, and we were unable to put together a team. So we have 100% intentions of doing that and doing very well in the spring of this year. Like I said, we did not cook the food today, but we brought the carvings of the watermelon behind you. That is 2 of our chefs at the conference center do those, and we actually have 3 students that have done very well at carvings. I have not been versed in this, but I think I can figure it out. Okay. I just want to skip through. We had Sarah Holtz is one of our students, and the carving that's in that picture she did and won a silver medal for in ACF-sanctioned competition last spring. She learned at school. They get a carving kit with their uniform and everything for school. She just took it home, practiced. Watermelons, cantaloupes are fairly cheap to buy. So, but yes, she won silver. It was her first competition, and she had only been doing it for probably a month. Wow. So she did very well. I'm going to go back on some of the slides. Our students they will leave with a Serve Safe certification, which is now mandatory in every kitchen in the state of Tennessee. It was just in Nashville, but now it's expanding. So they will all leave with that, which will make them more employable than just say, somebody that came, wants to cook. So that helps. We actually had a 100% passing rate on that. They just passed their tests in October. This is one of our students at the Five Senses where he did his internship. Our general manager, Mike Osborne, who I spoke of before, just had his 20th anniversary, and they spent their dinner at the Five Senses and had a very nice meal. And the 2 internship students prepared it for him. This is one of our classes. Most of the students' work is in the kitchen. It's very hands-on. You can only learn so much through book work, through culinary, as are most industry professionals. So they have classroom time, but this is pretty much what their classroom time looks like. They have a cutting board, a fish that they fillet. The picture on my right is our student making sushi also. So they've done a wide range of everything. I think if you can think of it, they've at least done it once. And then again, our Sarah, who's won competition. And then when Dr. Locke said we had an 80% completion rate is because the student that we have in the middle, he did not finish the program, but he has actually got an executive chef position in Eagleville, I believe. So he's still in the industry. He just didn't finish our program. And then Robert Irving, we took our students to the Cisco Food Show in September. It was actually the first large food show that Cisco had done in 5 years. And it was at the Music City Center in Nashville. So that was a field trip for them. And they got to work with the purveyors, and they also got to meet a lot of chefs in the industry around Nashville. We did a Wounded Warrior event up in Clarksville, Tennessee. All the students prepared the food. They went up there and they served the veterans and the Wounded Warriors, and they actually loved it. It was an experience for them. There is, to the right, is our general manager, Michael Osborne. We have carving stations and also, I believe he's doing a class there. We do classes for high school students, and then we do classes for people in the areas, and he's usually the instructor that will do those. On the left, that is actually me in the ACF, in a competition that we've done here. And everything that we do competition-wise here is with the American Culinary Federation. But since Skills USA does work with students, they have the opportunity to do both competition in skills and in the American Culinary Federation. That to the right is Chef Bart O'Dare. He has won numerous medals in carving through the American Culinary Federation, and he is our executive chef at the Conference Center as well as the instructor. To my left is Christian Pennington. He started with the Conference Center as a student when he was in a culinary program in high school. He attended the Art Institute and has also won numerous awards through carving and cooking through the ACF, and he is our sous chef at the Conference Center and works with the students. And I believe that is all. Is there any questions that anybody has? All right, thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Chef Davis. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr.
And
Locke.
we are at the point, again, I want to thank you for your support and all of the staff at Tennessee Board of Regents. And we are now at the time with the year that we're going to bring all of our partners in, and we are going to be, which serve on the advisory committee, and we're going to do the Plan, Do, Study, Act review of how it went and what went wrong, what we could do better, and so that if we have to do any tweaking for the next group for as the year continues with the next enrollment, that's what we will do.
Well
so.
done. Glad
Thank you
got
for this opportunity.
Thank you. Glad you got the drive to 55 in there, so that's excellent. And of course, Parker, go right ahead, Regent Smith.
As a company, we've become increasingly concerned about nutrition when it comes to, employee health and things. And I assume that, I don't know, this may be well, Danny's gone. Well, no, there she is. This may be an observation and a question both. When our culinary programs, is that all factored in? And I know the state's got a big effort right now to help our general health. And I saw a thing just in the last 2 days where the average American eats out 5 nights a week, which surprised me a little bit, although our restaurants are usually full. But I guess as I think about the issues around nutrition and the health concerns that ultimately underlie some of our health care cost issues, is all of that taken? I assume that's taken into account as we look at our culinary programs and our hospitality programs. One of the challenges we've got as a company is to encourage our folks to eat more healthy food, but it's also got to taste good. Mm. And that's, so that's a chef hospitality issue in my mind. So I guess it's an observation, but a question as well. It looks to me like we ought to be linked in. If we aren't, maybe we are. But
certainly, they have a section on the nutritional value or a component in the curriculum, and we are bringing on an advisory committee member from one of the hospitals in the area that we want our students to have also the opportunity to experience working in that arena for the dietary thing, so that they will have an opportunity to learn that also.
Thank you, Regent Smith. Great.
So Vice Chair Reynolds, that concludes our report.
Thank you very much. And as Dr. Locke said, our TCATs have a tendency to say yes and then figure it out, but that's a good trait. We need to be nimble, so that's a good thing. Thank you very much. Item 7 on our agenda is unfinished business, and I am told that we have no unfinished business to come before the board at this time. We do have, under new business then, if I might move there, 3 items on your consent calendar. Once again, you've received that information in advance. A tenure appointment at ETSU, terminations, modifications, and program implementations for the TCATs, and then a proposed revision to our policy on telecommuting. If there are no questions on any of those items. Regent Freeman, thank you. Regent Griscom, thank you. Any further discussion? The consent agenda requires a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. We have 2 items for informational reporting. The first being the financial report overview, which is in our notebooks. I think I saw Vice Chancellor Sims slide in. There he is. There he is. Does anyone have any questions for Dale on this item? It does not require action.
No.
Just
kidding.
All right, thank you, Vice Chancellor Sims. I think we feel well informed on the financial report overview. But the second one, the employer and alumni survey for our very able TCATs, from whom we just heard, we'll call on Vice Chancellor King to present this, what I think is the annual survey.
I hope I'm going to be brief, but we'll get through this, and I'm going to try to say I'm going to improve to everything to 100%. It's not there yet, but I'm going to get that out front now. That's our goal.
Save me some breath.
All right, I just thought I'd do that. On an annual basis, the College of Applied Technology surveys students and employers in an effort to assess the effectiveness and relevance of each of our occupational programs. These satisfaction surveys provide valuable data in the evaluation of program content, curriculum, delivery of instruction, technical skills, worker characteristics, anything that's essential to the success of the students in the workplace. These surveys are mailed out to students and employers in March each year, because we want to hear back from employers as well as the students. The review of the survey results enables the TCATs to continuously improve the occupational programs. For the last year, the alumni rated the program preparation for employment satisfactory above in 96% of the weighted responses. 89% of those were in either good or excellent, so it's a good sign. Still not 100 yet, but we're getting there. Employers rated student performance 98, satisfactory above in 98% of the weighted responses, with 80% being good or excellent, so quite pleased with that. There were approximately 6,000 graduates during the 2011-12 academic year. Over 5,200 graduates were placed in employment in their related field. Now, that's what's important. Each one of these folks go into their related field. And that's 84%. That's a little 2% over last year. And these are only documented placements. We feel like the number is much higher, but you have students that get out finding them and things like this. I used to say the truck driving program was the hardest program to document placement because they were gone. We never saw them again. This number is probably higher. I think we're looking at using more social media and using some of the Department of Labor websites with Social Security numbers to try to determine more accurate data in the future, which I think will increase that number significantly. But the important thing is, and I think we're working on that this number does not include over 6,000 industrial training supplemental certificates. These are what we call special industry programs that are designed just to upgrade existing employees. Over the past 40 years, our campuses have been the go-to place for industrial training. That request has changed little over the years. You know, we work closely with the Department of Economic Development, Labor Workforce Investment Boards, and the County Economic Development Boards in recruiting new industry to our communities. While the need has not changed, the training has. Today's industries rely on our expertise to assist in advanced manufacturing, PLCs, robotics, CNC training, welding. We also place a special emphasis on soft skills, computers, and safety. You know, special industry partners, you know, what's interesting is the partners that are involved in this is Nissan, Volkswagen, FedEx, DuPont, Smith & Nephew, one of the world's largest joint replacement manufacturers, you know, out of Memphis. You know, we do a great deal of training in that. And, you know, when you look at, you know, industry over the years has got a black eye a little bit. You know, there's still a stigma of what an industry looks like. You go into a place like Smith & Nephew, and boy, that environment, you can eat off the floor, you know, in that type of environment. And I think industry has to change your image just a bit because, and you know, when you look at industry the other night, I was in the Nissan motor plant in Deckard, Tennessee, and he said he had 15 jobs available at $34 an hour in industrial maintenance that needed to fill. Think of the impact that would make in a Franklin County, you know, that there. So, and you know, I think that in not only high school counselors, but parents and all got to realize manufacturing is a good place to work right now in today's environment. You know, an interesting thing that we offer special industry classes, and that's what's attractive, at midnight, at the 7 to 11 shift, and you know, because this is part of what industry needs. You've got to work up their schedules at some time. You know, and I think this is an important role. Over the years, we've trained anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 a year of industry-specific programs, you know, to upgrade, because in today's manufacturing environment, upgrade's so important. Staying current. Parker can test, you know, just your folks are staying current every day for something. And we try to incorporate those students in our day programs when they can. You know, we set up some, may send a, and it's economical for business and industry as well. So I think we do a great job in meeting the economic development needs of each community. And once again, we use this alumni survey to assess how we're doing on a regular basis. We want to hear. Most of these industries have folks that serve on the advisory committees as well, but this employer and student survey is we want to hear how we're doing. We want to hear if we need to do something better. And so this works so far. Okay. Any questions?
I just want to add a comment because I was at one of the recent meetings where we have our in Knoxville, for example, where we have an advisory board of industry folks that are there with us, and that is really stressed when we have these meetings, and we ask them, we say, you know, it's nice to have you over here to have supper, and you get to see what we're doing, and blah, 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 but the really important thing is for us to know, are we doing what we need to be doing in terms of providing educated workforce, and that was discussed a little bit earlier when I guess it was Dr. Catanzaro was talking about who our client is. We have several, and certainly workforce development and our people, all the industry that's hiring us. So that is something that's very, I think, the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, and it's a very important part of what they do, and in some ways I think is what makes them so successful is because they are completely connected to the folks that are going to be hiring them. And, you know, sometimes that's not necessarily true as you go all the way up the ladder and all the way up to the university, that there's so many that they don't have maybe that strong connection with every single academic opportunity, but TCATs sure do. So that's that's something I've learned, and that I think is so important to the success of us getting to those relationships that get people hired.
You know, we used to say that workforce development is what we do. It's really workforce development is all we do.
Oh.
Yeah. So thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Vice Chancellor King. And now we move to our action items. And we kick off with a big one, a recommendation for the president of Cleveland State Community College, Regent Griscom.
Thank you. There are things that we get to do as regents that, you know, that have clearly an impact on students, on future opportunities in Tennessee, I will have to tell you that being involved in a presidential search process is one of those where we have the responsibility to make a lasting impact in a community, on students, faculty, and others who are going to be coming through that institution for many years. So it was my pleasure to be asked by the Chancellor to chair the search committee at Cleveland State Community College for new president. Regent Varlin and Regent Roddy were also on that committee. But what really made it work were the others who served on the committee with us. We had a great engaged group of students, administration representatives, faculty members who asked very good questions, and then the community representatives really came in with a pride for the work that Cleveland State and Dr. Hyde has done up to now, and the opportunity they know they have in the future in a community that is growing in the state of Tennessee. So I just wanted to start with that. We had 53 candidates who submitted their name for consideration for this position. We narrowed it down to 12. And then on the 14th of October, we met again where as we know in the law where they ask us to have 3 to 5, we had 4. But before we got to the on-campus interviews, one of the 4 decided to withdraw. So we had 3 that came to campus in Cleveland, Tennessee for interviews on November 4. They were 3 very different candidates, brought different skill sets, and I do think that at the end of it, as the chancellor went around and talked to all of us, that there was a unanimous support for the recommendation he's making. So I just wanted to say it's a great privilege to be part of this process, because you realize when it's all said and done and we get ready to vote that we're putting somebody in place that really will have a huge, huge impact in the future in that community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your leadership in chairing the committee. And Chancellor, give us your recommendation, if you would, sir.
Thank you. As the Committee Chair Griscom noted, that we really did have a good committee that worked extraordinarily well together, and I think came up with 3 very fine candidates, and candidly, any one of whom I believe could assume the position as President of Cleveland State and do a good job. But as I considered the feedback from committee members and community members, both on campus and off campus, it became apparent to me that the very best choice among 3 good choices was Dr. William Seymour. I strongly feel like that he is the right person at the right time for Cleveland State. Dr. Seymour currently serves as Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Jackson State Community College. Before joining Jackson State, Dr. Seymour, and where I first got to know him, was president of Lambeth University in Jackson for 2 years. Went through an extraordinarily difficult process, I think it's fair to say, as Lambeth ceased operations as a private university, but has now become part of our system and part of the University of Memphis. He was Vice President for Administrative Services and Dean of Students for 14 years, I believe, at Maryville College until he moved to Lambeth. So, Madam Chair, after much thought and careful consideration, it is my pleasure to recommend to you Dr. William Seymour as the next president of Cleveland State Community College. If you agree, Dr. C, if you don't agree, I guess I'll go on out. But if you agree, Dr. Seymour will start. First day on the job will be January 2nd, 2014, at a starting salary of $156,726 with the standard presidential allowances and benefits of state employee.
Thank you.
That's my recommendation.
Thanks for your recommendation. in addition to Regent Griscom, I know Regent Roddy has had to leave us, but Regent Varlin, do you want to add anything, having served on the search committee?
Just that it was chaired by a very good chairman, and seriously, we had a really nice field of candidates, and the group did work well together. It was fun and interesting to meet all the community of Cleveland State, and they're just so excited about this opportunity. A little bit sad, of course, because they love Carl Height and his wife and family, but just felt good about the process, which I think is the most important thing, is that the community felt like the process was put together to serve their community in the very best way and the college in the very best way. So I'm very excited about our choice. Thank you.
Madam Vice Chairman?
Yes,
Although I was not on the committee.
Yes, sir.
The nominee is from Jackson.
Yes.
And I know,
Thank you for chiming in.
and I would like to say that I'm honored that I know that he'll do an excellent job. I congratulate the committee on selecting him, and I'm proud of it.
Thank you, Regent Kisber. Well said. Well, we have the Chancellor's recommendation. Call for a motion.
So so sorry.
That's all right.
Okay.
I will
Yes.
move that we approve Dr. Seymour as the next president at Cleveland State Community College.
I second it.
Could I second that?
Sure. And second from Regent Kisber. Thank you, Regent Griscom. Is there any further discussion?
Multiple seconds.
Well, once again, we may act on this with a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Dr. Seymour, would you like to come forward and make any comments? And please recognize Catherine, your wife, I gather, is with you as well. There she is. Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you. I couldn't be more proud to be provided this position. Last night, I was at Dr. Nichols' house and was talking to Carl, and we got into a conversation about shoes to fill. I was surprised to hear that he wears a size 13 and a half. So some big shoes to fill, but I want to thank Carl for the great service that he's provided to Cleveland State, and I look forward to serving that in that capacity. I've been very proud to be a part of Jackson State, and Dr. Blanding's back here. I want to thank him for his friendship and mentorship. It's been a lot to me. I want to thank the committee and the Board of Regents for this appointment. I look forward to this position, and we're in the process of moving. It's crazy to do, but we're heading to Cleveland tomorrow, and hopefully we'll find a house, and we'll get started as soon as we can. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. We look forward to continuing our journey with you, Dr. Seymour, indeed, and to Mrs. Seymour, welcome as well. And we will certainly pay the appropriate homage to Dr. Height here very soon. So one down, and now one more to go. Chairman Duckett, working on our University of Memphis search.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. As chair of the search committee for the University of Memphis, we met yesterday for the very first time, and I do want to thank my colleagues, Regent Ferris and Regent Humphreys, for serving on the search committee. We are technically going to need to approve the criteria for the position of president, but before I actually present that, I would like my colleagues to know that at the meeting yesterday, we had 100% participation. We have 24 members on that committee. It was attended by all members, and those individuals from the community, as well as, when I say the general community, as well as the business community, were actively engaged in the dialogue, particularly as it relates to the issue that is going to be before us today, and that is the approval of the criteria. And it was the consensus of those in attendance yesterday that as it relates to the criteria for the position of president at the University of Memphis, that we structure the criteria in as broad a sense as possible so as not to arbitrarily preclude any individual from being considered to be the next president of the university. You have in your packet a draft of the criteria that will be used for consideration, a draft of the criteria that will be used in the announcement for the vacancy of the president of University of Memphis. What I would like to ask my colleagues to do is to approve that draft. However, grant to the chancellor in working with the vice chair of the board as well as myself as chair of the search committee, editing authority to incorporate the comments that were made at the public session that we had yesterday, which occurred at 11 a.m., and then B, the comments that were gathered from members of the committee. But so that you know the specific direction, it related to modifying or eliminating items that would narrow the pool of candidates, such as where there were strict requirements. In one instance, in the criteria, it will say 5 years of higher academic learning, rather than making that an absolute, making it a preferred item. It's not that we would eliminate any consideration of items of that nature, but we wanted to maintain the latitude to keep the pool as broad as possible. But in any event, once the chancellor has reviewed and edited the criteria, it would be circulated to all members of the board before it would be posted. So if there were additional concerns raised by any member, we obviously would have a chance to voice those to the chancellor and or the vice chair of the board. So with that, I would recommend approval with the condition that I had added to the criteria.
I got a question for you.
Can I take a second on? Thank you. All right. Now, discussion.
So in the first, it says an earned doctorate from an accredited institution preferred.
Yes.
Is that the doctorate is preferred or the accredited institution is preferred?
The doctorate. Okay.
It's intended to be the doctorate.
Yeah, that's what it, yeah, that's the intent.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Regent Thomas?
I perhaps was not listening as close as I should, but the third item on the criteria, a minimum of 5-year successful campus administrative experience and so forth, that does not have preferred besides, is that what you were addressing?
That's the one I was referring to. I just did not articulate
Yeah.
it correctly, trying to recite it from memory, but that's the one specifically that
you
there
were
was
addressing.
discussion.
All
There
right.
was discussion yesterday, and I was referencing.
Any further questions or discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second, a voice vote once again on this. All in favor of approving the draft criteria with the stipulations that Regent Duckett noted, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. And thank you for your leadership, Regent Duckett. I know this will be a great journey. And to Regent Humphrey and Regent Ferris, thank you for being part of this important team. This is a great endeavor. This time of year, we have revised budgets to consider, and we do now need for Vice Chancellor Sims to come forward, please, sir.
No, I was just mentioning to President Height, need, not want. So I understood that, Madam Vice Chair. You need me, you don't necessarily want me, but
There was nothing subliminal in that message, but anyway.
yeah. I will have to say a little bit of levity. I didn't realize when Dr. Denley came on board how it would heighten the competition for the rhino. But apparently the battle has been joined, Tristan. I am here to talk about the revised budgets. If you will turn to the next page, just background. I think that you recall that in June you adopt initial operating budgets. We refer to that as the proposed budget. It's important to note that we don't know enrollment figures. Sometimes state budget numbers aren't finalized when you take that budget up. We haven't necessarily fully incorporated in the effect of any maintenance fee adjustments that the board might act on in June. So there are adjustments that always occur between that proposed budget and the budget that's before you. The big one being that we now know what enrollment is, at least in the fall, and have a better idea of what it will be in the spring, or at least some better idea. What's before you today for action is the revised budgets. These budgets were submitted by the schools in October, hence the October revised. We have gone through them in the central office. The adjustments that are being requested by institutions are in line with what we would ordinarily see this time of year. These materials, I won't go over everything that's in your board book, but those adjustments are generally in the nature of recognizing revenue changes from what was proposed based upon enrollment changes and based upon the full effect of maintenance fee adjustments. And then on the spending side, what we traditionally see, the big movers and shakers in there, are usually where research at our universities, that faculty splits for research have been finalized, so we usually see an increase in research effort. At the University of Memphis with their conference center, they have, by this point in time, have contracts in place for conference activities, so we usually see a pretty substantial adjustment in public service spending. And then in operating dollars, the big change usually in operating is that's one of the places that scholarship activity is accounted for. So when maintenance fees go up, scholarship commitments go up, and we recognize that. So all that is in your materials where we try to reconcile those two. What I want to do is take a few minutes and walk you through what I believe is a more apples to apples comparison, might be more informative for you. If we look at the October budgets from last year to this year. So you're looking at budgets that at that point in time we knew what the revenues were for conferences. Let's say we knew what the faculty splits for research were. We had our enrollment information in, so it's more of an apples to apples comparison. So we'll start through this. First looking at state appropriations. I won't dwell on this. What we're attempting to do here is, as a starting point, reconcile our appropriation number from October of 12 to the number that we're operating on this year. The only item I think really requires much explanation here is down toward the bottom, unbudgeted CC and TCAT equipment. You recall that the governor proposed and the legislature agreed to a $16.5 million appropriation for equipment purchases. That number was not distributed out to institutions to be budgeted as part of the October budgets. Instead, that money was reserved here at the central office. We will distribute that money to the TCATs and community colleges based on the value of equipment actually purchased. So instead of distributing money and then having, let's say, some potentially savings from group purchasing of equipment, we're actually reserving that money here to hopefully work our way further down the list of requirements if we indeed have some savings from group purchasing. So again, we're trying to get to our appropriation number, which at the bottom line is $641 million. Just by way of reference, if you looked at this number 7 or 8 years ago, it would have been over $700 million. So we're down substantially in terms of our state funding. Take a look at our revenues. State appropriation up 5%. That's a combination of the general operating increase from formula outcomes and $10 million for our COLA, our 1.5% COLA in the current year. You see student fees in total are up about 2%. That is more or less in line with what we would expect. The rate adjustments that the board agreed to in June probably averaged about 4%. These numbers then are influenced by that rate increase as well as essentially flat, a little bit of downward enrollment. So that has driven those numbers down. That other fee number where you see a big jump, or the biggest jump there, 8% growth, that was due to a new fee at ETSU to support allied health programs. It was a specialized academic fee that the board approved for allied health at ETSU. The other item I'll focus on here is that last line on restricted. The vast majority of those restricted revenues, a little over $800 million, are federal financial aid to students. So as you might imagine, fewer students, that number will track downward based on fewer students. That's the big driver there. Next slide essentially is the pie chart that tries to give you an idea of our shares changing. I'd suggest to you no material change in it. We've got a little bit of an increase in terms of the share of state appropriation. That's a little misleading because the restricted share has gone down because of the relatively substantial drop in restricted revenues. So if you look at a whole pie and that piece of it contracts, it makes the other pieces look like they're growing. So really no major shifts there. Next, we'll look at how we spend money, and for these purposes, we'll look at our unrestricted E&G. So all of that restricted money that we talk about, the 800 some odd million, is now no longer in this picture. What I'll call your attention to are two areas where we had increases. Public service, a little over 14% increase, $4 million. That is accounted for really in one area. I should say it's primarily one area, substantially. Tennessee State has several specialized units. Cooperative Extension is one of those units, Forestry, Ag Service. They have been carrying forward funds, unspent funds from prior years. This increase is largely driven by them carrying forward unspent money from last year into this year's budget for disbursement. So we see that across the system. You have unused money, you bring it into this year to use for equipment purchases, et cetera. We are told by the staff at TSU that they fully expect to spend out this carry forward position, so we should not see that phenomenon going forward. The other one is institutional support. Although the percent increase is not 7% is not as great as what we see in public service. The dollar amount of $15.5 million is substantial. Institutional support really is administrative. It's the president's office, finance office, in many cases the IT shops, et cetera. Largely that increase is explained through marketing efforts. The efforts at the board office on behalf of community colleges, our marketing for community colleges is reflected here. So that's a little over $1.5 million by itself. We've also had some targeted marketing efforts at some of our institutions. Tennessee Tech, I think, is one that comes to mind where they've dedicated some additional resources there. Also within that area, the development offices fit into this institutional support effort. So your fundraising activities, not surprisingly, institutions that are more active in fundraising are committing more resources there. Again, Dr. Odom will think I'm picking on him, but I think he's got a science or chemistry building that he's starting to raise money for, so he's starting to invest in development activities to support the fundraising that will be required to create a match there. And then lastly, another driver, we had some investment at MTSU in public safety training and additional equipment. Institutions such as MTSU, really all of our institutions have to invest in that. That is another area that people look at institutional support as just administrative overhead. It really encompasses much, much more than that in terms of that safety position. So the pie chart on this one, again, the thing when I saw this chart that concerned me is instruction was down 1%. When you dig into it, it's in the rounding. We're moving from 49% in terms of the revised budgets for last year to 48%. It's really like 48.4%, so it's rounded on the chart down to 48, and the 49 is really like 48.7%. So really a nominal change there. Otherwise, not a lot of shifting in terms of overall purpose. Next is a table that will show you where our money is spent by purpose. As you can see, the number that jumps out at you there is benefits. We were instructed by our auditors this year. They kindly instructed us about, Renee's not here, but I think it was in late May, early June, that across our system we had to go through and reclassify our treatment of graduate assistantships. The expense of graduate assistantships we'd been accounting for as scholarship activity. They said it needs to be accounted for as a benefit. So that 10% change is largely accounted for through that accounting requirement that we reclassify that expense for graduate assistantships. The chancellor is looking quizzically. I'll be glad to give him the lowdown on that. It will take me about an hour or so. I know you're very interested in that.
We'll do that later.
Yeah. Capital outlay, a big percentage decrease there, really in the scheme of things, not a big dollar amount, largely reflects where institutions had initially hoped to invest in additional equipment. Capital outlay includes equipment with values of more than $5,000, at least in the way that we treat it. And based on enrollment changes, declines, much of that has been put off until later in the year. They're not budgeting for that at this point in time. So by natural classification, the pie charts, again, big takeaway, we are a human resource enterprise. On a budget basis, right at 70% of our spend is in benefits and employee salaries. The travel expense, the capital outlay, those numbers don't move around much from year to year. In all candor, you could have looked at these charts 10 years ago and seen much the same picture. Next page. This is kind of a summary of what we've looked at so far, where we've taken a look at the unrestricted E&G expense those 2 years. You can see up about 2%. Auxiliaries, as a reminder, those are things like our dining facilities, our bookstore operations, things that under our accounting have to be self-supporting. We're seeing about a 2%, right in line, so to speak, with inflationary costs there. Restricted, we've touched on that, is a decrease, and then our transfers are up slightly. These are transfers to and from our E&G budgets. We'll touch on that the next page, a little bit more detail on that. Where you see a positive number, this is where we are transferring money from our unrestricted dollars to a restricted purpose, so to speak, to a specific fund. The big one at the top there is retirement of indebtedness. Our schools are required to fund their debt through their retirement of indebtedness fund. So these transfers totaling a little over $56.5 million reflect that. Unexpended plant, that is really money coming back into the operating account from our unexpended plant fund. That is largely, not wholly, but that net difference is largely from the University of Memphis. There was a significant transfer there. You'll recall that University of Memphis is one of the schools that has been most impacted by the removal of the hold harmless. This is them bringing some non-recurring money back into their budget to allow them to step into their new funding, recurring funding level. Renewal and replacement is equipment. So you can see that we're proposing as part of these budgets to make an additional installment there. So the next page is where we try to look at how all this works in terms of, are we operating in balance? That beginning fund balance number of $146 million, just for reference, when you adopted the proposed budgets, our schools at that point in time believed that the beginning balance for this year would be about $61 million. So by the end of the year, after the books were closed on the year, last year, they ended up underspending budgets basically by a substantial amount more than what they had envisioned when they submitted their proposed budgets at that point in time. Just as a reminder, they're submitting the proposed budget that you operate on in June, they submit that to us in April. So there's still a good bit of time and activity that goes on, and they don't want to under budget, so they attempt to ensure that they're budgeting conservatively so they can cover their expenses. So we've got a gain there of somewhere around $80 million. You work through our unrestricted E&G, the revenues and expenses and the transfers. You see that we have a negative there of $94 million. That really reflects a spend down of our unrestricted E&G balances that would be proposed this year from that $146 million. Auxiliaries are operating basically in balance in the aggregate. And then when you look at total, the total we would envision essentially spending down the unrestricted E&G fund balance by about $95 million. The last chart here, again, is the wrap-up. All the numbers that are on this chart you've seen in a summary form through this October to October comparison. You've also seen the 33 or 34-page detail within your board book that breaks that down by institution. Just a word on the total authorized positions at the bottom. Those positions, 16,495 for unrestricted activity and 1,600 positions restricted activity. That is filled and unfilled and includes part-time and full-time positions. So that gives you a picture of the total employment picture. Madam Vice Chair, I'll be glad to try to respond to questions members might have, but it's our recommendation after review of the budgets to recommend you adopt the budgets as presented.
Any questions for Dale? Regent Freeman.
The difference between 48% and 48.4 and 49, that delta, how much is that in dollars and positions?
I don't know the positions. The dollars is $2 million.
Okay.
I didn't make that up. The chancellor's going to accuse me of making it up.
That's close enough.
Yeah. The reason I get that, if the sixth slide that gives you the table, if you look in instruction, there's a $2.8 million change there, decrease, and I think that's
it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is there any way, because we've got, 2 years in a row now of enrollment that's now been negative. Is there any way, and probably the answer is going to be no, I just wanted to ask you, as we're looking forward to the upcoming budgets we're going to work on, anticipating that probably we're going to be in another negative growth in terms of student enrollment and factoring that in as we're looking at the numbers for this coming year?
Yeah. Regent, it's a great question. We have been meeting, we're engaged in a series of meetings with each institution on both this year's budget, the management of this year's budget, and the going forward budget. Every one of those, we're touching on enrollment. Vice Chancellor Denley and I have met with some of our staff, and we are trying to develop a model that builds that in so we can maybe give better information to our schools about where we think enrollment is headed to. But yeah, our operational budgets, 65 to 70% of the funding is coming from student revenues. So getting a much better feel on what that enrollment might look like is important. If I can say the positive news, 2 years ago when you looked at enrollment, it was basically down across the board. This year you look at enrollment and it's not across the board. We have, I think, more than half the institutions had decreases in enrollment, but around half of them had either stable or growing enrollment. So second item to keep in mind, and Chancellor, you may remember this better than I, but I think when we compare 2007 enrollment levels to 2013 enrollment levels, that all but one institution is still above where they were in 2007. So I think that so far we're holding on to that enrollment at least above where we were pre-recession, and in some cases substantially above it. But it is an item that we're monitoring and trying to be more aggressive in terms of understanding.
Yes, sir. Regent Thomas.
Vice Chancellor Sam's looking at that 18,000 number for authorized positions. Does that number fluctuate much from year to year? And say, since you've been here, do you remember, and particularly beginning in 2008, our enrollment in the recession went up, and now it's going down.
Right.
Does that number fluctuate much?
It has moved up. It's within a 10% trading range. 1,800, 2,000 positions is what I would suggest to you. Regent Thomas, you'll remember we went through the buyout programs, employee buyout programs, which we were allowed to, we got in a position of reducing employee census to a degree there. But about the time we were doing that, we had the inflow of students. I think this would be echoed by some of the presidents, and I think as recently as this week we've had some presidents tell us what that's really allowed them to do is where positions had, in the course of history, if a position became vacant, the tendency was to fill that position where it was. The buyout programs let them essentially create some flexibility, particularly given the growth that we've seen in tuition revenues and the state reinvestment. They're now able to be more strategic about where they reallocate faculty positions. if they know that XYZ programs are growing and others are static, they're able to invest in new positions there. So I think that what we're seeing is smart growth in positions where they're investing, where there's actually demand, as opposed to kind of just, well, someone left, we filled the position where it was.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We need a motion to approve. I'm sorry, who did I just miss there? Oh, thank you, Regent Freeman. And a second. Thank you, Regent Smith. Is there any further discussion? And because this is a fiscal matter, we're going to put Mary Moody to work down there. We need a roll call vote, please, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Regent Copeland.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent Ferris. Regent Freeman.
Aye.
Regent Griscom.
Aye.
Regent Humphrey.
Aye.
Regent Kisber. Regent Markham.
Aye.
Regent Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Smith.
Aye.
Regent Thomas.
Aye.
Regent Varlin.
It's just stepped away.
Oh, I'm sorry. Regent Wallace. The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Madam Vice Chair, if I can, I neglected to thank both Renee Stewart and her staff here and the business officers and leadership throughout the system who we couldn't do this work without them. So I want to express my appreciation to them publicly.
And we appreciate them as well, so please pass that along. And we appreciate you. Thank you, Dale.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Oh. David Gregory, our Vice Chancellor, to present to us our legislative initiatives for 2014.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm here to present the 2014 system-wide legislative initiatives for the upcoming session. This is an item you see only in December in terms for approval, and then you'll see updates at the March meeting and whenever we meet when the General Assembly is in session. Before I begin my presentation, I'd like to just point out that our institutions have begun the season of hosting legislative events on their campus. This is probably the best turnout in terms of the number of institutions that are hosting events. Thus far, we have had an event at the TCAT in Murfreesboro. We have had an event at Ball State Community College that included the TCAT at Livingston and the TCAT at Hartsville. And just a couple of days ago, we had an event at Roane State that also included the TCAT in Harriman. Next week, we'll be heading out to Tennessee Tech and to Northeast State Community College, along with the TCAT in Elizabethton. And then on Friday, we'll be at Dyersburg State Community College with the TCAT at New Bern. And again, virtually all of the institutions have scheduled, or in combination with another institution, an event to have discussions with their the legislators that are in their area. This is not an easy event to schedule. You can imagine trying to sort of shuffle around calendars for a lot of different people. And so I give the institutions credit for scheduling these events. The other thing that I think they're being very thoughtful about is having meaningful dialogue where it's not just someone standing and presenting to somebody, but an opportunity to engage in discussion. And we all know we learn better when you get a chance to sort of have a dialogue back and forth. And I think that continues to sort of create a sense of transparency with the General Assembly and a sense that we're all moving together in the same direction. So with that, we'll continue on that path. Many of you will be invited to those events as they continue to transpire. I'm going to begin now, Madam Chairman, members of the committee, with the 2014 system-wide legislative initiatives. This process builds itself from asking for suggestions from the presidents and from the directors. What I'm presenting to you today is, in essence, a financial agenda. For those of you who may be somewhat new on the board, higher education still remains a fairly uncomplicated system in the code, and many times you'll see the initiatives of the Board of Regents being those that relate specifically to funding, and funding that will hopefully occur as the governor recognizes his budget. Also, I'd like to save room for Drive to 55 initiatives as they continue to unfold. I think we are all sort of looking forward to different initiatives that the governor will be proposing that will benefit higher education. And so I'd like to remain flexible enough that we can continue to promote those as we learn about them and go across the state, as well as we begin the legislative session. So the first then is to support the recommendation that you have seen and now has been acted upon by the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, which is funding the outcomes and the outcome-based formula. That number for both the University of Tennessee and the Board of Regents is right at $29 million. Our piece of that is $15.3 million to fund the outcomes in the outcomes-based formula, as well as a 3.6% increase in the non-formula units of both the board as well as the university. On capital funding, the Higher Education Commission has taken 5 out of our 6 projects that we had recommended at the board level in September and have included those in their recommendation going forward to the governor. They are the Volunteer State Community College new humanities building, the Columbia State Community College Williamson County Center relocation that would house the program that you have seen earlier that's now being hosted in the facility in Franklin. The TCAT improvements for Chattanooga, Jackson, Paris, and Shelbyville, the Austin Peay State University Fine Arts Building, and the Jackson State Community College Health Sciences Building. I know you recall this, but it bears pointing out to you. Each one of these projects require a match, and the institutions are well on their way in providing their match for these programs. The community college match is required at 10%, the TCATs at 5%, and the universities at 25%. And Madam Chairman, excuse me, yes.
Excuse me, David, could I back up just
Please.
a minute? It's kind of being through my head. The outcomes funding, you said, was a total of $29 million?
Yes.
And our share is 15?
15.3.
Does that mean the UT system has equally amount as we do, and we have many, many more students than they do? That doesn't ring right to me.
Well, that's the total amount of funding that's being recommended.
Well,
And that's net with the adjustments.
and it reflects, in essence, and Dale, correct me if I misstate this, but the allocation of those amounts are by institution, based on the outcomes that were reported to THEC that THEC then calculated. So it's based virtually entirely, if not entirely, on the outcomes that were generated. What we see is, and we'll understand more about this at our next meeting, but University of Tennessee Knoxville is the largest single amount of dollars. UT Martin also had about a 7% increase. Austin Peay was just slightly, as I recall, was slightly under that. But it's all based on the outcomes that are the inputs to the formula. So that's what's driving it.
Does that mean the UT system outcomes are better, considerably better than ours?
It means Knoxville's were better in terms of the number on a percentage basis. I don't think they were, the Knoxville campus wasn't the highest achiever in terms of outcomes.
Excuse me for
That's all right.
backing up.
I've got a question.
Sure.
David,
Yes.
What was the project that was left off?
East Tennessee State University Performing Arts Facility. And this bears a little bit of attention, Madam Chairman. The bottom figure that you see there is $69 million for capital maintenance request. I need to point out to the board that that is actually more than was requested when you saw the recommendation in September. And placed at your seat are the additional projects that would be a part of that increase in capital maintenance projects. Were we so fortunate to be able to go that far in the listings? When you saw the capital maintenance budgets, they were an improvement. It was at $45 million. The rationale behind the increase is the sort of historical practice of the Higher Education Commission has been to allocate maintenance budgets based upon square footage of each system. And the Board of Regents system has about 60% of the total square footage, the UT system at 40%. And based upon the recommendation out of the UT system, the Commission made a decision to increase or go further down the TBR list in terms of making its recommendation. So I want to point that out to you, Madam Chairman. In addition to the capital outlay and capital maintenance request, we are also asking as a part of our legislative agenda that we're support year 2 in the equipment funding that it was received in this past year. I think for all intents and purposes, this equipment money is being allocated in a way that will really create some positive workforce development impact across the state, both in our TCATs as well as in our community college system. So this would represent year 2 funding, and that is a part of the Higher Education Commission's recommendation going forward. There are a couple of items I'd like to mention to you that were not included in the THEC recommendation, but I would like for you to see them and be aware of them. They were a part of items that Vice Chancellor Sims presented to you as he was presenting to you budget improvement requests. They are all things that flow into supporting the Drive to 55, the Complete College Tennessee Act, and some of the things that you've heard Dr. Denley speak about earlier. The supported guided pathways to success, the community college marketing plan, as well as workforce development assistant vice chancellor position. All of those things were a part of a request, but were not included in the recommended funding going forward. So we include those in this with the hopeful opportunity we'll get the ability to continue to articulate our support for those types of funds.
Well, then, can I ask a question?
Please.
So particularly with the community college marketing plan, will that just be dropped?
No. What we had, Regent Barland, you may recall where it was an adjustment to maintenance fees last year that generated 900,000. Roughly $1.2 million for our ongoing marketing effort. We think, Monica could speak to this, but ideally we would have about $2 million a year available for that effort. What we did is, given that the administration had showed a propensity last year for funding marketing of initiatives like Western Governors University, is that we would ask for them to allocate state resources to our marketing efforts, which would have allowed us to repurpose that tuition increase that was done last year to support that or reduce it, eliminate it. But it didn't make it in TX's recommendation, but we hadn't given up on it quite yet.
Okay. I mean, because those were excellent.
They really were.
I mean, I could see they were really good.
And going forward, linking that with institutional, with the individual, create the brand, then link the brand, and that's kind of the next phase.
Right.
The next item, Madam Chairman, is an item that we share in with the University of Tennessee as well as the private institutions, and that is the money that is given to need-based aid students through the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation. You may know this as the TSAA award. It is a grant award given to need-based aid students, and Tennessee still is a fairly low appropriator of need-based aid funds. So the Higher Education Commission has acknowledged a improvement request from the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation that we would like to throw in support as well for an additional $31.7 million that would provide additional aid to qualifying students, an additional 26,000 qualifying students across the state. To give you some order of magnitude about this, we probably have 5 times the number of qualifying need-based aid students looking for student aid, otherwise qualified, than we have dollars to be able to fund. And again, these are students who would be attending both the public system as well as the private system in our state. And then I mentioned earlier to you, we believe that there will be initiatives coming forward that will support the governor's initiative on Drive to 55, and we want to be in a position to be able to support those as we see those materialize. Madam Chairman, members of the committee, that again is it is a legislative initiative report, but it's really about supporting the finances and the financial recommendations that are being made by the Higher Education Commission and others.
Other questions for Vice Chancellor Gregory? As usual, a great job in laying this out. You have your work cut out for you next session.
Thank you.
So.
Madam Chairman, may I mention one other point before we go
Yes.
to a vote? Last year, you approved, as a part of our initiative, and you may recall that a bill introduced in the General Assembly, depending upon what year it is, will lie over for another year, and we're still in sort of the second phase of a General Assembly. You approved our ability last year to try to seek a legislative change that would allow our student and faculty regent to sit for a period of 2 years. 1 year is voting and 1 is non-voting. I'd like for you to acknowledge the fact that we were unsuccessful with that last year, and we'd like to try to reinvigorate that discussion. It would make our board mirror the University of Tennessee Board of Trustees Board as well as the Tennessee Higher Education Commission as it relates to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do. We need a motion for approval of our 2014 system-wide legislative initiatives. Thank you. Regent Ferris, I'll take you as the second. Okay. Any further discussion? This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, David. Good job. Our next action item, we have 2 program proposals, I believe, to approve today. Vice Chancellor Nichols, followed by Vice Chancellor Denley, please.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, we have one program recommended for approval, and it's so apropos that we're talking about skills gaps, Drive to 55, trying to increase graduation retention rates. This program we're proposing fits exactly into that category as well. Dyersburg State Community College proposes to establish a new Associate of Applied Science degree in Advanced Integrated Industrial Technology to be implemented in the spring semester of 2014. This AIIT degree addresses the governor's Drive to 55 goals and the specific workforce needs of Northwest Tennessee. The program will enable students to attain industry-recognized credentials. They have numerous letters of support submitted from local industries and the Chamber of Commerce to support this program. The program will be offered in a hybrid, blended format at the Dyersburg campus, the Gibson County Center, and at the Jimmy Nafee Center at Tipton County. The curriculum is also aligned with Columbia State Community College and Southwest State Tennessee Community College, both having been recently approved by Board of Regents for this same program. Articulation with the TCATs will provide students with the opportunity to expand and expand their diploma to an Associate of Applied Science degree. The proposed program requires 60 semester credit hours and will incorporate 4 technical certificates to be embedded in the degree, which means that as the students progress through the degree, they are getting these certificates en route. These degrees or certificates are Industrial Electricity 1, Industrial Electricity 2, Mechanical Components 1, and Programmable Logic Controls. The certificates are included in the current 30-day review that has been mailed to you last week. Some of these courses will also be available to high school students through dual enrollment. Dyersburg State anticipates 20 graduates of this program annually. The equipment for this program will be paid for by Governor Haslam's competitive grant for workforce development that's currently underway. And the amount that Dyersburg received for the equipment was $589,022. Dyersburg State also reallocated $29,000 as a match for a USDA Rural Business Enterprise grant. External training and associated travel in the amount of $3,500 will be funded through a First State Bank grant. Amatrol Company will provide software to support the lectures and labs. Much of the course material is already available online. And a Perkins grant will cover the first year's salary for a full-time instructor. Private contributions have been allocated to provide additional training and certification to the adjunct instructors. This proposal has been reviewed by the staff of the Office of Academic Affairs and the Office of Community Colleges. We would respectfully request your approval of the program.
Thank you. And I believe we can take both this and the University of Memphis proposal together. So any questions of Dr. Nichols?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Denley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. So it's my pleasure to present a proposal for a new doctoral degree in health science and policy at the University of Memphis. So the School of Public Health at the University of Memphis proposes to offer a doctoral degree in health systems and policy designed to train the new generation of teachers and researchers in the area of health sciences. I think we're all aware of the national shortage in healthcare professionals, and this is really part of an overall package to try to make an impact in training the next generation of people to work in our hospitals and healthcare systems. So the planned date for this proposal would be to begin in fall of 2014, and this is the third then of 3 required doctoral programs for the University of Memphis School of Public Health to seek accreditation from the Council of Education for Public Health. This really is a demonstration by the University of Memphis of its serious commitment to address the workforce shortage in healthcare sciences, and is really an integral part of the state's overall master plan in trying to address the shortfalls in healthcare across the state. So this proposal has been reviewed by the staff in academic affairs, and I would hope that you would approve it. Thank you.
It sounds fascinating in
really
reading the
does.
description, so
Yeah,
absolutely. Any questions for Dr. Denley?
How many students you project to have in that program?
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to begin. It will begin relatively small, but in the end we reckon that there'll be about a dozen or so students when each year that this program will serve. Yeah, which is about the sort of size that you would imagine a mature PhD program at a university would. 12 students graduating from a PhD program each year is a pretty hefty graduate program.
When you establish a new PhD program, is there a cost associated with it, and how do you make that calculation?
So there are costs in establishing new doctoral programs. Doctoral programs are sort of interesting in the sense that many doctoral programs are formed out of coursework which is often part of master's level work which is already part of the programs. The difference in having a doctoral program is then that students have additional coursework and then of course there's thesis work that's on top of that. This particular program is being funded by a combination of funds that are being reallocated by the institution itself, and also there were substantial startup funds that were given as part of the governor's budget last year.
And
So how
just
much does it cost?
So what I think the full budget details are in your packet. It looks to say that overall it will cost about $1 million a year to run.
Okay.
Yeah, but the full breakdown is in your packet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for Dr. Nichols and you, Dr. Denley, does this now go to THEC, or has THEC already acted on these?
No, that's right. It will go to THEC.
It goes to
and I
THEC.
should add that $1 million is forecast to be offset by revenues from tuition for the students being involved in the programs. So.
Thank you.
Ours does not go to THEC.
Yes,
It does
yours
not,
is.
okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for educating us there a little bit. So we've heard these 2 proposals, all about Drive to 55 and meeting the healthcare needs of our state. I would be grateful for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Thank you, Regent Markham. Thank you, Regent Kisber. We'll save Regent Varlin on another one. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Those two shall move forward. Now, Monica Griffin-Watts is going to talk to us a little bit about something we touched on a few minutes ago, and that's branding.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Reynolds. Excuse me. As you see in your materials, this is a new policy that has already been approved by the presidents and the directors. It supports one of the main priorities that you all have emphasized, and Chancellor Morgan has emphasized of me, to increase the understanding and the recognition of the TBR brand. Many of the points listed in the policy are already being implemented. So this provides a written policy that basically articulates what we've been doing. It allows each institution to maintain its own identity, but also reinforces the fact that they're all part of a larger system. This really ensures the investment that we're making at the system level in our marketing efforts has the greatest impact possible by the individual institutions aligning themselves with that. And it supports our marketing efforts in the Drive to 55 initiative.
Regent Ferris moves approval.
Second.
Regent Duckett, second. Any further discussion or questions for Monica? Hearing none, this also requires a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Monica, thank you.
Thank you very
and
much.
to our presidents and the TCAT directors for their support of this as well. Now, to a couple of bittersweet moments, and the Chancellor has left the room but told me he'd be back in just a moment. Happy but bittersweet, right? We have two resolutions before us this afternoon. I believe they were both sent to you under separate cover. The first is a resolution of appreciation for Ms. Lynn Elkins and her service to our TCAT at Morristown. Regent Varlin, may I impose on you? And where is Lynn? There she. Oh, yeah. Are you? Do you want to come up front so we can see you? There she is. Oh. She's been here. I won't. No. So, Regent Varlin, would you like to read the resolution, and then Ms. Elkins we will turn to you here momentarily.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, it is my pleasure to read the resolution of appreciation for the service of Lynn Elkins. She has served faithfully the Tennessee College of Applied Technology in Morristown since 1968 and as director since 1991. And it hasn't been the Tennessee College of Applied Technology very long, has it, Lynn, for your, whereas she is a native, that's right, whereas she is a native of Tennessee and graduated from the University of Tennessee in 1968 with a BS degree in Business Administration and later received a master's degree in Organizational Management. And whereas she began her career in the Tennessee Board of Regents System at the Morristown State Area Vocational Technical School, which is now known as the Tennessee College of Applied Technology in Morristown, as a basic skills instructor. She also taught the Office Occupations program for 20 years prior to becoming the director. And whereas she was instrumental in establishing satellite facilities in Tazewell, Greenville, and Sevierville to meet the growing need in outlying areas by creating relationships and partnerships with area hospitals, school systems, and industries. Whereas she has served in numerous leadership roles with the Tennessee Board of Regents, to include the Directors Executive Subcouncil, Chair of Directors of Subcouncil, Chair of the Industrial Electricity and Industrial Maintenance Curriculum Committees, and many others. And whereas she has been very active in the community, serving on numerous committees and boards, including Workforce Investment Board, Encore Theatrical Company Board of Trustees, the Lakeway Area Workforce Development Initiative Board, the Morristown Area Chamber of Commerce, and Board of Directors, and as the chair of the Morristown Chamber of Commerce, and the Morristown Area Chamber of Commerce Industrial Board Advisory Committee, the Morristown Utility Systems Board of Directors, the Lakeway Regional Hospital Advisory Board, Regions Bank Board of Directors, regional and local P16 councils, and a longtime member of the American Technical Education Association. And whereas she shall be greatly missed, not only by fellow colleagues, faculty, staff, students, and alumni at the Tennessee College of Applied Technology in Morristown, but by everyone in the Tennessee Board of Regents system. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the members of the Tennessee Board of Regents wish to recognize the outstanding career of Ms. Lynn Elkins and express its appreciation for her superb leadership. Thank you, Lynn. It has been a pleasure working with you and getting to know you, and I personally appreciate your service.
Thank you. As I sit back there pondering life. I'm sorry, you got to vote. Okay.
That's right. That's right. We're holding our breath. Regent Varlin, I need a motion.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to accept this resolution.
And a second? Second. Thank you. Regent Smith, any further discussion? Lynn Elkins, the floor is yours, and thank you for a job well done.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't realize it could have failed, but that would have been all right.
Oh, I forgot the voice vote. We haven't voted. I forgot. Now, clunk. We're all getting a little punchy.
As I sit back there pondering life, I was counting on my fingers. I have served 5 chancellors, 6 governors, and 2 vice chancellors, and many fellow directors. There's not many left. Well, there's not any left.
Wow.
That I started with. So apparently I should have quit a long time ago. But throughout the years, I've worked under one recurring theme. Do more, do it better, and do it with less, which we have done. I have had the finest job in my city. I've enjoyed it every day. I told them last night at the dinner, I always, at graduation, tell the students, if you get a job that you can't sing, whistle, or hum on the way to work to, it's time to retrain and get a new job. I'm tired, my hum's gone. I never could whistle or sing, but I always like to hum. But I thank you all for this opportunity. I wish everybody continued success. This is the finest system. On a daily basis, the gratitude of seeing people go to work, making a living wage, is worth it all. Thank you.
Thank you. I find it very hard to believe that her hum, her whistle, or her singing, that she's tired in any regard after that very passionate and moving set of remarks. With my apologies, I now need a voice vote to approve the motion that is pending on the resolution to salute the incredible career of Lynn Elkins. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Once again, a round of applause. Well done. Regent Griscom.
You'll come to the front. And let me share, as I get ready to share this resolution, that I have the distinct pleasure to represent all of you all at Dr. Height's final graduation ceremony Saturday week. And I want to share that. I appreciate Carl giving me that opportunity, because we were friends before I got on the Board of Regents, but it's been great to get to know him, to watch him, and to observe the things he's done. So with that, I will now read the resolution. And by the way, as I read it, I think it will be understood why he has 13 and a half size shoes. Whereas Dr. Carl Haidt is completing 17 years as president of Cleveland State Community College. And whereas he has served 42 years as a respected educator, beginning as a history and science teacher, head basketball and track coach at James Weldon Jr. High School in Jacksonville, Florida, moving into higher education as director of student activities and history instructor at Dalton Junior College in Dalton, Georgia, advancing as a dean of students and student affairs at institutions in the states of Florida, Washington, and Virginia, and serving as campus vice president, provost at the Brandon campus of Hillsborough Community College in Tampa, Florida, prior to assuming the presidency of Cleveland State Community College in 1996. And whereas during his tenure as president, he has provided distinguished leadership to the college and its 5-county service area, which resulted in enrollment of 121,000 students and more than 7,500 students earning certificates or degrees. And whereas his 17-year tenure makes him the longest-serving president in the history of Cleveland State Community College. And whereas his commitment to increasing access resulted in the college more than doubling the enrollment of its off-campus site and increasing total enrollment by 23%. And whereas he was instrumental in leading the college in redesigning courses using technology and service learning to improve instruction and student success. And whereas he enhanced community support of Cleveland State College Foundation, as evidenced by increasing the assets of the foundation by more than $5.3 million and awarding scholarships to over 2,600 students. And whereas he established partnerships with key business and industries, which resulted in the college being recognized as a valuable resource in workforce development, assessment, and training. And whereas he was instrumental in promoting the Tennessee Achieves program, which provides last dollar scholarships and mentoring to all high school graduates in Bradley and Meigs counties. And whereas he has received numerous recognitions, including the President's Higher Education Community Service Award, the Shirley B. Gordon Award of Distinction for Phi Theta Kappa, Administration Leadership and Campus Sustainability Award, Junior Achievement Leadership Award. And whereas he is recognized by all who know him as an individual who exemplifies the principles of responsible citizenship and who is richly deserving of honor. And whereas he will be sorely missed by everyone in the Tennessee Board of Regents system, and whereas the Tennessee Board of Regents wishes to grant President Emeritus status to him for his continued support and leadership to the system. Now therefore be it resolved, the Tennessee Board of Regents expresses its sincere appreciation to Dr. Carl Haidt for his outstanding contributions to the state of Tennessee and wishes him the very best in the years ahead in his retirement. And I move the adoption of this resolution.
Thank you very much. I'm going to do this right this time. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Dr. Haidt, thank you for extraordinary service. Claire,
My wife, Claire.
Mrs. Haidt is with you today as well. Thank you also.
You know, Lynn, you're a tough act to follow. I thought I'd been here a long time, and I pale in comparison, Lynn. You can say that over and over, and I'll appreciate it, yes. I do want to take a moment because this last 17 years has been something special for me, and I think it's been special for the college, and I think as a result of what's happened at Cleveland State in 17 years, Cleveland is a very different community. But I do want to recognize my family first because I think they made a lot of sacrifices, particularly my wife. I've got 2 sons, one in California and Florida. I don't see them as much as I would like, but I think retirement is now going to give me that opportunity. I would like to thank the board. I don't think I've ever seen, I've been around a bit. I think Regent Griscom identified a number of states and systems I've been in. But a board that likes each other and it works with each other, because it has made a difference, I think, in Tennessee. I can still remember coming to Tennessee where Tennessee was 48th, 49th, or 50 in categories that you don't want to be 49th, 50th in. I really do believe right now that the Tennessee Board of Regents, my colleagues, my fellow presidents, members of the board, the TBR staff. As a result, now Tennessee is becoming a model in a variety of areas. And we feel at Cleveland State that we've done some things that have garnered attention beyond Cleveland State. Our redesign of the math program has been very successful, been modeled in a lot of different places. In fact, we have been recognized as a finalist for the Legacy Award, which is, we'll be looking at those former bellwether winners in terms of what's happened to the program 5 years later. Well, we are all over the place 5 years later. So wish us luck in Orlando in January. I want to thank the staff at Cleveland State. That's really made my job. It's not what I've done, it's what they've done. And I've been fortunate the faculty and staff have done a marvelous job. But I think it's time to give someone else a chance, and I think Dr. Seymour will do you've made an excellent choice. I think he will do a wonderful job. A lot of things like Tom had mentioned are happening in Cleveland. Right time, right place. I'm going to miss this. But at the same time, I want to have some time off, but I will stay involved in higher education. I appreciate your willingness to approve my President Emeritus, because I think the project that I have will be a benefit to this group. What I want to do is look at future trends in Tennessee that will impact higher education. And so I think we need to be ahead of the curve, and I've always had an interest in looking down the road, and so I'm hoping that I can be of help. Again, it's been a remarkable journey, and I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I'm going to miss all of you because you've become good friends. Thank you.
Well, you say you're going to miss this, but we can assure you we will miss you more, although we are delighted that you've already got a project in mind to be as in your President Emeritus status. And if, in fact, this state is becoming a model, as you say, across the country for the great things going on, it is in no small part thanks to your leadership. And to further honor that leadership, I'd like to turn the floor over to our Chancellor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Upon the unanimous recommendation of a campus committee appointed in compliance with the TBR policy on the naming of buildings and facilities, a request was forwarded to my office to name the Math and Science Building at Cleveland State Community College the Carl Hite Math and Science Building. Since the policy really envisions that the president would be the convener of the committee to make that determination, we consulted with our general counsel and arrived at what we believe to be an appropriate alternative, which Vice Chancellor David Gregory served in that role to convene this committee. As you have heard, Carl has exhibited incredible and outstanding leadership during his 17 years at Cleveland State. Under his direction, as he just mentioned, the campus underwent a redesign of its math curriculum, which has in fact garnered national attention to the campus. This recognition would allow his outstanding leadership to the campus during the past 17 years and his support of the math redesign to have a lasting place on the Cleveland State campus. So, Madam Chair, it's my recommendation that the science building at Cleveland State Community College be named the Carl Hite Math and Science Building.
Thank you, Chancellor. And Regent Griscom?
I move the adoption of the naming request.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Regent Duckett. Any discussion? This also calls for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
I believe the ayes have it. Dr. Hite, would you like to make any further comments?
I'm not really sure I should say the following, but I'm going to. For the longest time, when I first came to Cleveland, there was a number of buildings that had administrators' names on it. And I got the faculty very upset with me when I told them that if someone should come to me with $1 million, I will put their name on that building. Here we have an administrator at Cleveland State having his name put on a building. But I will tell you this, I'm starting to work on that $1 million.
Well done. Congratulations. And congratulations, Mrs. Hite. So thank you for being with us today. We have one more tiny bit of business to take care of. We voted on a calendar for next year at our previous meeting. We subsequently discovered that our location here for March is not available on the date we approved, which is Thursday, March 27. It is available that following day, Friday, March 28. I would like to entertain a motion, if at all possible, to change that meeting date by one day and to have this reflected in our minutes. And those of you who are good on iPhones, iPads, and a variety of other items, do you want to check quickly? That is not as like last March rather. It is not Good Friday, right? March 28th, Friday, March 28th. Here.
March meetings.
So a one-day slide so that we could be at this location.
What's the temperature going to be that day?
It's going to be sunny. It's going to be sunny, exactly.
And rain in the middle.
As long as it's not Good Friday, I'm good. I do. Thank you. A second? Thank you. Any further discussion? Sandra will get an updated calendar out to us, but in the meantime, a voice vote to approve this one date change in March, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Chancellor Morgan, any further announcements?
Very quickly, President Noland is
yes.
doing well.
Good.
He's, I think, still a little bit sore, maybe a little bit of issues with his left arm, but going to be just fine. And maybe even showed up in the office one day in the last couple of days. So he's doing well. The White House has announced an initiative on December 11th that they will do relative to a national summit launching a new initiative around success in higher education for low-income students, especially focused on remedial education and the historical lack of success in students who go into remedial education. They have asked a number of states to participate in some fashion in that announcement. We're not quite sure what that some fashion will be, but Tennessee will be one of the states featured in that conversation. So we'll let you know more about that as we learn more, but that'll be next Wednesday. And then just one note you might want to put on your calendars, the House budget hearing has been scheduled for February 26th. That will be at 9 o'clock on the 26th in room 16 of the Legislative Plaza, the House Financial Ways and Means Committee. Any or all of you are certainly welcome to attend that if you would like.
Thank you. Well, we have had a full and productive afternoon, so thank you all for being patient listeners. John and Dale have their Christmas ties on. Fran has her vest on, not to be outdone by the gentleman. And with that, both this afternoon and going forward, every best wish for a safe and happy holiday. We will see you in 2014. We are adjourned.